Good evening. It's Monday, January 9th of 2023. This is a regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Education. This time we'll do roll call. Mr. Carney?
Here.
Mr. Goodman?
Here.
Ms. Murphy?
Here.
Mr. Powell?
Here.
Ms. Reed?
Here.
Ms. Wells?
Here.
And I'm Judy Price. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. Dr. Rhodes, district mission statement.
Yes, it's to prepare every student for success in every classroom, every day.
Thank you. Item 1.4, scheduled patron input. We do have several tonight. We are pleased you have joined us tonight to celebrate student and staff achievement, hear informational presentations and reports, and reserve consideration of policy decisions and administrative recommendations specific to the Leavenworth Unified School District. We set aside time at each regularly scheduled board meeting to hear from the public. Comments should address board policies or the procedures our administrators established to carry out those policies, as opposed to individual complaints to investigate and resolve. Please understand that while board members will listen to and carefully consider all comments, board members will not immediately respond to questions either verbally or through gestures, for example, raising hands in response to questions, nor will they engage in dialogue of answer and response during the patron input time this evening. This is not an appropriate time or place for patrons to make comments of a personal nature about any district employee or student by name. Persons making comments which violate the privacy rights of district employees or students will be asked to terminate their remarks. If speakers have concerns specific to an individual student or staff member, please make an appointment with the superintendent. Those concerns will be documented and shared with the board. Attendants with the same interest, we ask that a spokesperson be appointed to deliver the group's message. As a unified board committed to desired outcomes for our school community, we ask that comments not be directed at individual board members, but addressed to the board as a whole. Thank you for taking time to address district business and policies with the board.
Madam President, can I have a few minutes to speak?
Yes.
I think I speak for some, if not all, the board members in welcoming this group of people into the room. I mean, it's great to see the community actively engaged and concerned about making sure we're doing the right thing with our school district. So your comments and concerns are appreciated. However, I asked to speak because while most times the board and board members try to focus on doing our jobs and not what's going on politically around our community. But there are times when the board needs to ensure that the community, as well as people that are participating in our board processes, understand the facts and the truth surrounding district issues that we're going to consider, which we are tonight. We're going to review and we're going to vote on certain policy changes that should be carefully considered. And the public and the community should speak to it with their concerns. However, this process, unlike what may have been portrayed in other forums, is a normal, healthy part of our board processes to consider and make changes as necessary to our policies. And just a little background, because I think it's important, because not everybody understands our processes. Almost every school district in the state of Kansas subscribes to the Kansas Association of School Boards and rely on the school board, or excuse me, the KASB is what it's called, to evaluate legal changes, legislative changes, and even challenges that are ongoing in other school districts. Compile what that means in terms of potential policy changes that school districts might want to consider, again, their recommendations. They're provided on a regular basis. The board has a process for considering and implementing those recommendations, because that's all they are, is recommendations. And the process that we use is there's a first read that's announced here in the meeting, and that is to give the board members formal notice and the information then to consider over the next month. Then it comes to the end of the month and it's time for the next board meeting. If nobody on the board has provided any substantive input or changes they want to that policy or policies, then it goes into the consent agenda. That's an automatic process. And then if it's not, and there are changes, it's put on the agenda, just like this is tonight, so that then the full board can talk, publicly address both our concerns and to get good feedback from the community on the community concerns. And as you'll see here in a few minutes, even up to the very point of approving the consent agenda, any board member can say, I want it removed. And so it's a pretty flexible process. This is just, when it goes on the consent agenda, it's just because there were no additional requests or requirements. In a previous board meeting about 2 months ago, this came up, and it was coming, the issue of our IF policy, which has to do with the review of curriculum materials, came up. There was a policy recommendation from KSB. I was still concerned about it. I didn't think we'd adequately researched and addressed the issue. So I asked it to be tabled, the vote to be tabled. The board supported it. The superintendent supported it, and we tabled it until tonight. But there was no further board input in those 30 days, except for the issues I'd raised, and I didn't raise them again. And it's my fault. I should have. So they assumed, the staff assumed that there was no fundamental changes to the policy. It was put on the consent agenda. When I found that it was put on the consent agenda, I requested that the policy be pulled off the consent agenda and added to the normal agendas and agenda items, because I thought it was that important, as well as other members of the board had expressed they thought it was that important. So those are the facts. I mean, they may have been portrayed in a number of different ways outside of this body, but those are the facts. It's a normal part of the public board process. It's just like the legislative process, where you have committee meetings, the review bills, there's a floor debate, and then there's a vote. It follows that basic process. While I personally have concerns about the policy change for IF, I want to make sure that another thing is clear, is that policy did not come from any of the leadership in the district or from the board leadership. This came from KASB, and it's our obligation to review it and decide whether it's the right thing for our community. And that's what we're going to do tonight. So we appreciate your input. Well, we look forward to appreciating hearing concerns about the policy. My only concern, and I don't want anybody to take this wrong, but my only concern is that if you came here because you were concerned about the policy, and it's appreciated that you're here tonight. It's appreciated anyway. But no one on this board, or if you're concerned about anybody on this board or in the district trying to restrict community rights, that's really patently false. And you were influenced to attend under false pretenses. I hope it's because of a misunderstanding of the facts and the processes. Because if it was political gamesmanship, I'll just be blunt, our kids deserve better. So thank you for coming tonight, and we appreciate your comments. And we'll listen to everything you have to say, and we'll consider it in our, I know I will, but the board will too, consider it in their deliberations. So we want to welcome you and thank you for being here tonight, Madam President.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Powell.
Can I say one thing in response to Michael Powell? I just want to thank you for clearing up that item about the consent agenda.
Okay. First patron input is Mr. McBurney.
As you might expect, I am here to comment on the proposed change to the IF policy. Specifically, the provision to change from any person having a complaint about textbooks, etc., to any student, parent, or legal guardian of a student currently enrolled in the district. Whether this change came locally or whether it came from KSB, the intent is still the same, in my opinion. Students, parents, and legal guardians of students currently enrolled in the district are all subject to the board. The board has influence and an effect on their life. Person involves folks like me who are not directly involved in this district other than providing financing through my taxing and providing input to you through these meetings. It seems pretty clear to me that whoever authored this change wants to make sure that only those people who have something to lose by dissenting from a policy, therefore, the least likely to present a dissension, would have an opportunity to do so. I can't accept that. I cannot accept that. That seems to me like we want to run our schools in absentia of input from other sources. You're reasonable folks. And I hope you find that unacceptable. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Overby?
Different detail. I'm here to ask the board to reject the prescribed KASB policies regarding the selection, collection, development, and challenges to textbooks and media and other instructional materials. The processes are designed to be restrictive, opaque, and unnecessarily lengthy. There are some obvious problems with the policies as stated before, but I'm going to focus on a change in verbiage that jumped out at me under the collection development heading. In that section addressing media collections, various types of materials and a variety of content in various formats now reads diverse content in multiple formats. Diverse content in multiple formats sounds very sensible, but it can be fully loaded. One thing we have learned in recent years is that word choice, language manipulation, and the redefining of words is not an accident. It's designed to steer ideology. For example, we previously understood diverse to mean varied, but the word has come to mean variety only within a narrow ideological framework. More often, diverse is defined as not white, not male, not heterosexual, not Western, not traditional. We even speak of individual people as being diverse or not diverse, which is rather strange. Diversity, along with equity and inclusion, are the most venerated words in our public institutions, worshipped above all others. They are nice words used to paper over some divisive and destructive ideas. Diverse content can be, and I predict will be, used to justify radical, ideological, and/or inappropriate instructional material. The phrase will be, in effect, an insurance policy against any complaints or challenges coming from parents, teachers, or taxpayers. Have a problem with pornography in the school library? It's just diverse content. Don't want materials that promote gender fluidity? It's just part of a diverse collection. Disagree with media that suggests your skin color determines your life opportunities? You must be an enemy of diversity. Meanwhile, more classical content deemed not diverse will continue to be quietly removed as it has been for years. We all know how the language game is played, and it is my belief that diverse content may be a convenient, ready-made catch-all phrase used to frustrate the growing pushback about inappropriate instructional materials. Before dismissing this concern as frivolous, I strongly urge you to carefully scrutinize all the proposed changes in language in these policies, and when considering
15
future
seconds
policies,
remaining.
consider the motivations and implications of the language, because I guarantee somebody has already done that. Thank you.
Mr. Tass?
I have to say, this is the first time that I've come here before the board, and I'm sorry that I feel it's necessary to come before the board because, I was kind of, first of all, I was shocked last year to see that we have textbooks that encourage masturbation and looking at porn, and that's being taught to kids. That's totally against, my background, my upbringing, totally inappropriate. And then, I hear, I guess, you said it's not coming from the board, it's coming from some other guidelines, and somehow it almost slipped through on the consent agenda here and was almost passed, that are limiting basically our rights to comment unless we're a parent. I mean, is this America or where are we? This is a First Amendment right. We have our First Amendment rights to make our opinions known here, and everybody in Leavenworth should be able to come here and express their opinions. And so, I mean that's the main thing. Everybody's comments are supposed to go through a review process. It can take up to a month. Basically, the superintendent can decide to keep the material in the schoolroom until a decision is made. In other words, all sorts of bureaucracy and paperwork in order to get a comment. I think it's inappropriate that I had to apply 3 days ago just so I can come here and speak, when normally, in City Hall meeting or whatever, you can just come and speak. So, I mean, just more and more restrictions on free speech. I mean, what's going on? Is this America or what? Are we just turning into another dictatorship? I mean, that's all I have to say.
Mr. Borman?
I hope I'm on target here. I have a concern. Is Leavenworth School District considering a motion that if you don't have a child in the school district, then you have no standing with the school board? Woo! Okay, so if you are on school board, you don't have a child in the school system, do you have standing with the school board? If you're a parent or well, let's go back. How about a principal or a teacher in the school district, but you don't have a child in the school district, do you have standing? As a taxpayer, it doesn't matter. As a taxpayer that pays for the schools, whether I have a child in the school at the moment or not, I expect to have a say. Okay? So another thing going on, and it's understandable. As human beings, we all do the herd instinct. We all move with the flow. If this kind of thing is going on in adjacent school districts, or already has, and I say I'm a property owner in several different school districts for whatever reason, and I don't have a child in each one of those school districts, all of a sudden I'm paying a lot of property taxes, I'm paying a lot of taxes, and I find myself odd man out and have no say in anything. And for me, that's just all bad medicine. And I think we need not go down that road. And I think that needs to come to a screeching halt. It's always better to talk things out than to not, because all that'll do is cause more resentment and more angst. Thank you.
Ms. Preisinger?
Members of the board, Dr. Roth, administrators and staff, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak this evening. My name is Joanne Preisinger. I'm a proud graduate of Leavenworth High, as is my husband and our 2 children. I was on the site council at LHS for 8 years, and during that time, a small group of us from the council started the Leavenworth Education Foundation. I am politically unaffiliated. I am strongly opposed to political influences making their way into the educational systems. There is a reason why city and school board elections are nonpartisan, to do what is best for those who are served without being beholden to a political party. Sadly, this has changed in the past 2 elections. A force that recently moved to our city has attempted to influence all elections, even those outside of their own district. I feel undue pressure has been placed on some members of this board to follow the agenda of a political party and nowhere is it more evident than in this attempt to change the process for challenges of materials. The education of a student should be a collaboration of the student and teachers with support from administration and parents and/or guardians. Teaching materials and curriculum have been approved by staff and the board and do not need to be second-guessed by whoever has an agenda to disrupt the public school teaching process. If there is dissatisfaction, there are other options for an education. I saw the email sent out to the certain political party calling out the board president and superintendent for trying to sneak something by the citizens, and that only 2 board members were trying to bring conservative values and ideas to save the district from those charged with serving the students. This would be attempting a solution where there is no problem, throwing gasoline and hoping someone else strikes the match. There are real problems and issues in our world, our country, and yes, in our community. But I strongly believe allowing anyone in the community, especially those encouraged to force their political agenda, should not have the ability to usurp control over those professionals who are actually in the business of education. Hiring and keeping quality educators is becoming increasingly difficult across the country. I know many of these great people currently in the field and some who have retired. All say that doing the job they love is more difficult than ever. The love of teaching children is there, but the mental and emotional strain of
15
fighting
seconds
battles
remaining.
because of politics is taking a toll. It didn't used to be this way. We have an excellent superintendent, administration, and educators in this district. We have a diverse group of students from all walks of life.
Ms. Pricing, your time is up.
Thank you. Thank you for your attention and the opportunity to address the board.
Mr. Spratt?
Hi, my name is John Spratt. I'm a Christian, father, and citizen of Leavenworth for over 30 years. I, like probably all of us here, are greatly interested in what our kids are being taught and how they turn out as adults and citizens. I'm, of course, also interested in how all the kids in Leavenworth grow, are educated, and turned out. My comments tonight are about the policy as well. I was thinking about launching into how by passing these proposed changes in policy, it would be the equivalent of taking away a large percentage of the citizens of Leavenworth interest and concern about the futures of the kids that they're going to have to grow up and live with in the future. For the fact that the tax codes seem to think that we are all responsible for what goes on in the schools. So instead of that, here's what I did want to say. We have all heard that it takes a village to raise a child, and to raise a child really well, it does. Some of the proposed changes in the policies before you tonight will be a move that will not help children, but move us farther away from being able to. Not only is it each citizen's privilege to help protect each other's children, but it is also our responsibility. These proposed changes get rid of a large percentage of the available community to help influence and protect our community's kids by the ability to bring a challenge in materials to the school leadership. I'm sure that this school board is always looking for ways to improve its policies for the betterment of the children. Unfortunately, these proposed policy changes go against that. My hope and prayer is that the board requests a new draft or keep the current draft of the policy for the selection and challenging of curriculum. One that will protect the rights of all the people of this community to file a challenge to material that they see as harmful to children. I know I would want anyone to bring to my attention something that is harmful to my children or yours. And I'm sure you would as well. The wording in these policies, as you know, is very important and needs to be done with great care to promote what is glorifying to Jesus. And in return, it will be what is best for the children in our community. I trust all of you will remember this as you vote tonight and in the future as you continue to lead our district and our children. So thank you for all your work that you guys put in your time. So thank you.
All right, moving on, item 1.5, adoption of the agenda. To make fellow board members aware that we're deleting item 4, but the rest of the agenda stays as published.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda with the amendment of removing item 4.
Second.
We have a motion by Ms. Murphy, a second by Ms. Reed to accept the agenda, the deletion of item 4. All of those in favor? 7-0, thank you. All right, item 2. Mr. Kramer?
Madam President, Board, thank you for having me here tonight. Just going to give a couple updates on the city, mostly stuff that's relevant to the school district as we go around town. So tomorrow night, the City Commission will consider a design contract for the improvements on Violet Street. As a reminder, the city applied for and was awarded a state grant, an 80-20 construction grant for sidewalks and ADA ramps on Violet between 10th and 20th, and then the reconstruction of Violet between 20th and 22nd. That's the area subject to some concerns back there because of traffic and stacking. So again, thank the board, thank Mr. Dedeke and his staff for all the work that you've all done. And so now we're going to try to make that roadway better. So again, the design contract is on the agenda tomorrow night. Construction on that, as a reminder, is in 24. That's a state grant. So that's when that will happen. We're working another collaborative project with the city and the school district is working on the 5 Mile Creek project. They're out there now. That's a bank erosion project. Eventually, it would have gotten to the track out there at the middle school. So we're happy that that project is underway to stabilize the bank in that area. The city is in the middle of what we call a conceptual plan for possible traffic calming or a traffic study just north of the high school. So those streets that go north-south, just north of Leavenworth High School, we've had some complaints or some concerns about some speeding. I think kids have probably been leaving the high school for 60 years speeding as they would at that age. So the commission allocated some ARPA dollars, that's the American Rescue Plan Act dollars, and set that aside. We're going to look at are there engineering fixes, whether that's breaks in the roadway, anything that could help that situation. So that's ongoing right now. If you see surveyors out there or traffic counters, that's what they're doing. Just a couple of items of note for the community. On the 17th, the commission and therefore the public will see the first conceptual redesign of the Centennial Bridge. So KDOT's bridge team will be there on the 17th. They'll have 3D renderings, models that will show you what the Centennial Bridge will likely look like. And again, that's a 4-lane bridge with a pedestrian pathway located just north of the existing bridge. So that project is moving forward. I'm really excited about that and really excited for the public to see what that bridge is potentially going to look like on the 17th. Also excited about an item that could help, could partner with the district then at some point is on February 7th, the City Commission will have a presentation made by Big Brothers and Big Sisters of Kansas. So if you've followed some of the efforts that the commission has looked at for some youth services, we worked on the idea of Big Brothers, Big Sisters, Boys and Girls Club. And that has unfortunately kind of gone away as they've had some leadership changes and it was a pretty heavy lift. They needed a facility and all those things. We have re-engaged with Big Brothers and Big Sisters. It was in the community about 15 years ago. They've really revamped the program. And so they're going to come on the 7th and give a presentation about what it looks like now. Again, really conceptual in this age, but designed to help those children who need that kind of mentorship. So I'm excited about that presentation and to hear from them about the changes they've made in the program in the last 15 years. Those were the issues that I had that directly relate to the city, youth, or the school district, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Anyone?
Thank you all.
Thanks, Mr. Kramer.
Thank you.
All right, item 3, Kansas Association School Board Superintendent Search. Dr. Wiese?
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So the timeline I'm passing out here.
one more flip.
Everybody have a book?
This is kind of scary with burning no head.
Yeah. We always talk when you're looking for a new superintendent, trying to find that absolutely perfect person that can walk on water. So we don't want to give you any preconceived ideas about what they may look like. So we actually have a few things that we want to get done tonight. So the three things that I've given you are the notebook that I'm going to ask you to hang on to through this entire process and bring to every meeting where we're doing some function related to the superintendent search. And we'll refer to it. I'm going to briefly summarize the process tonight. And in phase one, we've already actually taken care of several of those steps, and we'll do a couple of those pieces tonight. So the calendar or the timeline that I've given you is just as a starting point. After having a conversation with Judy on the phone and kind of looking at some dates to try to avoid, I just threw this out as something that may come close to meeting your needs, but the whole point of it is to make sure we put dates on here that work for you. And so I think before we do that timeline, I'd actually like to walk you through the phases, because I think the timeline will make a little bit more sense when you can see what the whole of the process looks like. So if you'll look in that notebook that I've just given you, and you'll see if you kind of flip through it that it's divided, into 4 phases that look like this. Okay. So tonight we're talking about phase 1, which is the announcement and the timeline. So if you turn over to page 15, you'll see what we will work on for tonight. In terms of those. So announcing your intention to seek a new superintendent, check, that's done. And you did that on December 12th. And then we started advertising the position on December 13th. So that's already in process. If you look on through your notebook, that just shows some of the kinds of marketing. That's just some of the examples of things that have been done in other districts. So probably not things that are really significant to action that you all need to take. One of the things that I gave you tonight was my card, so that you can email me with any questions that you may have at any point about any part of this process. I'll work primarily with Judy and Brenda as contact people, but feel free to reach out to me if you have a question about this. So phase 2 is the preparation for interviews. And so we will touch on that briefly tonight, because it does impact your timeline in terms of how you do the interviews. It also impacts something that's a very important part of the marketing, and that is working with your stakeholder groups and surveying your community, and then coming back and sharing that information with you to identify the characteristics that you want to see in your next superintendent. And so we want to schedule the times to do those things, because I've actually already received a couple of phone calls from potential candidates, and your very best candidates really want to know what you're looking for, because they don't want to apply for a position that they don't think aligns well with who they are. And so it's very important that we look at what your needs are. And so those are ways that we do that. And then just moving forward through this overview then, if you look at phase 3, that's the interviews. We will work with you then to identify the questions that you'll ask, appropriate questions, the number of questions, but we're not going to get into the nitty-gritty of that till after we've come back and presented your focus group and your survey information about characteristics that you want, because clearly you want the questions you ask in the interview to align with the characteristics that you want in your next superintendent. But you can kind of look through, we give you a lot of sample questions that you can choose from. Once again, these are starting points to assist you. At KSB, we strongly believe in local control. You are the decision makers on these pieces in terms of what you're looking for. We have then the form that will assist you in the interviews, and we'll talk through that with you after you've completed all of your interviews, how you come together as a united team to determine who your first and second choice will be in terms of who you would like to offer a contract. And then the last phase is actually that hiring process. So for tonight, then, if we want to go back to page 15 and the sample timeline that I gave you. So the two decisions that you will make tonight that will really help us get at what your next superintendent will look like is, one, when you, first of all, confirming that you want to do an online survey to your entire community. Now, typically the way we do that is we have a link that we provide to you, and whatever your normal means of communicating with your entire community, we encourage you to use that means, whatever way people expect to hear from you. And then that goes out, and anybody can respond to that to help us collect information that then I will bring back to you a summary of those survey results. So you can see that data and also comments. There's an option for people to add additional comments. The only thing that we would not put in a public document is if someone were to, in a comment, put the name of a student or an unelected personnel, something that's not appropriate for public comment, we would redact that before that would go out. But everything else is shared with you. So that's one part of collecting information from your community and your stakeholders. The second part is scheduling a day in which you determine who you want your stakeholder groups to be. And we have representatives from those groups that we meet with throughout the day in focus groups. And I take them through a series of questions. And the way this is different from the survey is by having people in a group together that communicating with each other helps people clarify their ideas or come up with new ideas. And then we prioritize within those stakeholder groups what they think are the top characteristics they would like to see. So ideally, you schedule a special meeting for the evening of the day we do those focus groups. And that's when I present your survey data to you and the focus group data. And then you take that information that you've received plus the information that you have through your lens as board members. And I understand that all but one of you are new to the superintendent hiring process. Is that right? One of you has been through this process before? Okay, is it you? Okay, I saw somebody look at you.
Whole bunch of.
You look like a very wise man that's been through this process.
How nice of you.
So, but then ultimately, you see what your community says. You look it through that, through your lens, and then identify what those top traits, attributes, characteristics are that you think need to be present.
Can I ask you a question?
Absolutely.
What kind of, historically, what kind of input have you got on this community input?
On the online survey? So generally speaking, pretty good return. There have been a few cases where the return has not been as high in a particular district, but most of the time we do get a pretty good return on our surveys when you look at comparisons of most kinds of online surveys. We tend to see more response than you do. People usually are pretty interested in having some input. What we really want to emphasize is that you use communication that people are used to using, because that's the best way to reach your community and make sure that you let people know that it's coming, that you remind them that it's there. We also suggest not having it open. It's finding that sweet spot. You want to have the survey available long enough for people to fit it into their schedules. But what we find is if it's open too long, it becomes something that people put off and they don't complete, and then you actually have less return. So about a week usually allows people to work it into their schedule. It doesn't take a long time, but gives them plenty of opportunity to respond without it becoming something that's too easy to put aside and forget about. But I mean, once again, if you've had different experiences in your district, we want to use whatever methods have worked for you. Yes.
I can see how the survey, we have automation tools and all that will probably make that fairly reasonable. But how have you seen other districts select stakeholders for a face-to-face meeting?
So we can I can tell you tonight what typical stakeholder groups are. Some districts have maybe a special committee or organization or group that's different from typical, and we might incorporate them. Typically, if we look across the board, we usually have a stakeholder group that is classified staff, licensed staff, administrators, district staff, community-wide, in which boards each have their own way. Sometimes each board member selects one person or two people. We don't want the groups to be too large because then they're not effective. So we wouldn't want board members to probably select more than two if that were the method. Sometimes an invitation goes out and you see who asks to be part of it. I have seen it wide open and anyone can come. Usually those end up being manageable, but you run a risk of not being able to get good input if the group is too large. So that's the only risk if it's just wide open. Sometimes people, some districts use like their site councils, PTO membership, economic development communities, a committee from the chamber. It really, as you think about as a board, who are the people that provide input to you? And then the question I always want to throw out before you absolutely finalize who you want to have is, who haven't you been hearing from? And to really think about, what stakeholder group do we never hear from? They don't come to board meetings and speak. They're not the ones sending us messages, but we need to know what they think. Is there a way to tap in to that group. You may or may not feel like there is such a group, but I like to have you just reflect on that a little bit, because your superintendent will be serving your entire community, all of your students. And so you want to make sure you can get as much input as you can. So, but that would be kind of typical in terms of what we see. So we like to do them within one day. So probably 6 groups is probably the most we can really manage. If there's a reason you really need more, we need to look at how to schedule that or make that happen. But you want 45 minutes to an hour with each group. And then I'm compiling data and entering it into a spreadsheet as we go through the day, so to be able to have it for you that evening. So I need to build in just a little bit of time between each group, so to compile their data and add it to the report that you'll get that evening.
So are you, or is a representative of KASB, the one that leads those talks?
Yes. So I anticipate, unless we end up with a calendar issue in which I personally can't do it, but my intent is that I would be the one that would do your focus groups. If it's not me, it would be someone else on my team at KSB that would do that. Yes, you definitely don't want it to be an internal person. You want an outside person to conduct those.
What's an approximate number of stakeholders that you found that we should be looking at including in the stakeholder discussion? Just, rough order of magnitude in your experience.
In terms of the numbers
that we select for the stakeholder meetings.
for
Total
within
numbers.
each group, you mean?
Well, in each group's in total. If we use 6,
Okay.
then in each group, what?
So within each group, ideally 20 people, is a good number. I have done it with groups twice as big. Probably the most functional, effective are 12 to 15 people. Just in terms of group dynamics, within 45 minutes to an hour, 12 to 15 gives every person that's participating the opportunity to really have their voice heard. The problem when they get much bigger is they may be physically present, but it's harder to make their voice heard. So it's kind of that
Well,
way.
just mathematically, if we have 45 minutes to do it and you have 15 people, they get 3 minutes and they're done. So, there's some logic. That's why I asked.
Yeah. So it's just kind of, the research on the dynamics of it would tell you about 12 people. But typically somebody is going to plan to attend and not be able to be there. So it's kind of okay to have just a little bit more to account for illness and other reasons why someone that plans to attend isn't there. So I guess I would say if you do an open-ended one that gets really large, it's probably less really of a focus group and more just an opportunity to get quick input, because you don't have quite the back and forth if it starts to get to that higher end 20 and over. But like I said, we've done them. It depends on. Sometimes your need is to make sure that you're as inclusive as you want to be. You just have to weigh that, the quality of the information versus how many people are allowed to participate.
Do you have an example of what the online survey looks like?
Yes, actually, Judy, did you have a chance to look at that?
I didn't get it. Sorry.
Okay. I'm sorry. I thought that was sent to you on December 13th.
I don't think so.
Okay. Yes, I didn't bring it with me because I thought we sent it. Maybe
I will look. It might have gone to.
Okay, maybe it went to spam or something. It's a SurveyMonkey tool. Okay. And I could certainly.
I'll send it out.
Okay.
If I have it. If not, I'll call.
let me know and I'll resend it. So the questions align with the questions we do in the focus group. There are just more of them. We also have demographics so that you can look at the responses in terms of, are they employees, not employees, students? Oh, I forgot to mention, in my most favorite focus group I always work with is the students. I didn't even mention them. Some of the best data we get comes from students. And one of the things that I continue to love to see every time is how well their feedback aligns with the adults too. I mean, how perceptive these kids are. And districts have different ways of determining who the students might be in your student focus group. Sometimes it's a student council. Sometimes districts want to look at they want to make sure they include some kids that maybe aren't involved in a lot of activities. So to hear that voice too. So those are some things. I'm throwing lots of things out to you so that you can kind of discuss those with some of your staff in terms of what best provides Leavenworth the information that they need. So did somebody, related to that online survey. So that data that we give you, you can kind of see how it breaks out in terms of people newer to the community or people who've been in the community a long time. That's also helpful when you're looking at those responses. Okay, so the first question, and I threw out, potentially starting that survey this week. We really don't need it to conclude before we meet with the focus groups. So there isn't really a reason we would need to do it immediately this week. And since you haven't seen it yet, I already think perhaps that's the date we want to move. Do you have reason to think that a week would not be an appropriate length of time for you all to have the survey open? Does that sound reasonable? What if I just moved it so that it's the week prior to whenever we do the focus group? So as we identify that date, we would just have it open, and I think I would send that to Brenda, and then Brenda would make sure that got out through whatever means of communication. So we would send that link through her. So if that's okay, I can fill in that date after we look at these other dates. So we'd look at a week. Okay. So what's significant about the day that we do the focus groups for your scheduling is that we need to have you schedule a special board meeting that evening, so to bring that information to you and to have you then finalize from that information what those final characteristics are. So I suggested February 1st, just as a starting point. I was trying to avoid a couple of federal holidays in there. Does it look like that's a date? And I don't know if you can look at that. Okay.
What was that date again?
1 February. So work for your calendars.
So
It is a Wednesday evening.
yeah. So it would be your availability for a special board meeting. Brenda said that this room is booked, but it could be another space somewhere else in the district that you.
What time would this be?
So that would be your
Normal
decision.
Board time.
Time, 6 o'clock?
Sure.
Okay,
So work for your calendar.
that works for mine.
Okay.
I have nothing that day.
Okay, so we would just need a space within the district, and as we schedule these groups, so like if it's, and this is where we need the assistance of your staff, it needs to be a time that the people in these stakeholder groups can can come to a focus group. So typically like certified or licensed staff usually is like a right after school time. Likely for some of these, you will have to find some coverage for some staff to participate, like in your classified group. You may not get the representation that you want if you only have people that are available at a specific time. So you might have to have about an hour of coverage for a staff member for those kinds of groups. But you don't have to decide who your stakeholder groups are tonight. Just kind of process that, though, as you're thinking through that day, that it would be a day that we could pull those groups together.
Well, if we don't decide that tonight, when would that be decided prior to the focus groups? Because we won't meet again until that night, so.
We'll have to work that out.
One of the things, sorry to interject, but one of the things that could happen is if you decided the focus groups, like she mentioned, like classified staff, certified staff, district office staff, we can work with like department chairs to get how many individuals cross-reference from different buildings and that to meet the criteria that's kind of a cross-reference, so we could work with schedules. The other thing, if we do lunch, we can provide that group during lunch. If they're down during lunch, we could provide lunch. Same with you as a board that evening. If you would want to do, because I know schedules and stuff, we could provide some sandwiches or stuff here to where you can meet and work at the same time.
I will say that my student focus groups frequently come with pizza over lunch. So yeah, we definitely know how to pass pizza around and do focus groups. But really, we don't want you to lose sight of staying at the 30,000 foot level. So really, as Mike is saying, conceptually, you decide who you want represented, or if there are people you don't hear from, and then allow your staff to work out the details of how to get those groups identified once you've decided who they represent.
So could I clarify this meeting on the 1st? I know it's been mentioned starting about 6, but this almost sounds like this is going to be with the focus groups.
No.
The character.
Just to
Okay.
get the feedback
I
from
bring to you the data from the focus groups
Okay.
that I work with all day.
Okay.
So I probably need at least 2 hours of your time that evening.
Okay.
Now, I did recently have a board that ended up needing more time. I think their outcomes were great, but they did take a little more than 2 hours. So it's me sharing the survey, sharing the focus groups, and then I take you through an exercise where you're identifying then from everything you've heard and everything you bring, and you identify characteristics, and then I take you through a prioritizing of those characteristics.
Thank you.
So about 2 hours to do that.
Thank you.
So like a 6 to 8 o'clock could be the plan, if people could be flexible in case
Longer.
you're one of the groups that need a little. I've also seen a board take 30 to 45 minutes less too, but usually about 2 hours.
Are you available, Ms. Murphy?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, who else are you available?
Yes.
Mr. Carney?
February 1st?
Yeah.
That's not Groundhog Day, is it?
That's the
Yeah, I'm
second.
good.
Mr. Powell?
Okay.
Yeah, it might be remote, but I should be available.
Okay, so we'll plan on February being a special meeting. We need to have that. To discuss can we discuss more of that in the executive session, or do we have to do that now? The
Discuss,
groups, which groups we
you would
have.
do it open,
I'm just asking,
Yeah.
you do it now.
because you're naming groups, not individuals. And so like if you as a board would want to select, if say, as a board, you say, we're going to give each person 2 invites or 1 invite to the community side, then, I mean, you wouldn't mention names, you would just mention kind of groups that you as a board would like to see.
So I guess back to your question. How do you see us developing our stakeholder groups if we don't have a working session?
We're going to do it now.
I can do it right now.
That's,
Okay.
that's why I asked, is it now or executive
Okay.
session?
I didn't catch that. Thank you.
Okay, so we could come back to that in a little bit after we finish the timeline. So we have, right now in our marketing materials, we have asked for applications to be completed by February 15th. Unless you have a compelling reason, I don't know why we would need to extend that. That would be an appropriate amount of time to leave it open. Okay. And then this date that I have next about our screening, that really doesn't directly impact you. As it just needs to be done before the next date on the timeline, which is when I bring to you the screened applicants. Now, we will bring you the name of every single person that applies for your position. But through our screening process and review process, we will identify the candidates that we believe best align with the characteristics that we end up with on February 1st. So our screening is done against those characteristics as well as other kinds of background checks and things like that. So we will bring to you the candidates that we think best meet your criteria. But we will have the information for all of them. I'll have it with me so that if you want to take a look at someone that for whatever reason didn't rise to above the line for us, you can look at them. But but that would be on the 27th. And I believe, Judy, it was my intent to have that hit a regularly scheduled board meeting.
The
Is that
27th?
not? Yeah, is that not right?
We're the second Monday, so.
Oh, okay. So that must have just been,
Because our next one, yeah, it would be the 13th of February, and then we're the 6th, I think, of March.
okay.
Yeah, March is.
All
the
right.
first
So
Monday.
you do one board meeting a month instead of two. Okay.
Yes.
I think I was thinking you did too.
No,
Okay.
it's the 6th.
It's because of the
Okay.
spring break.
Then I think you really will need to have another special meeting. Now, this one is executive session. This is confidential information of non-elected employees. Okay. So at the end of that evening, you will have determined who you want to interview. So then when I looked at potential interview dates, I identified 4. Typically, boards interview 3 to 5 candidates, probably depending on size of district. You know, more of our districts interview 3 than interview 5. Sometimes there'll be, a couple that you just can't decide between as you're making the cuts. But the calendar does limit, the number of people you can interview based on the premise that you want to have, be able to announce or at least be in the process of negotiating with your new superintendent by March 6th. That was the work backwards date that I was using. So that would mean that you would decide who you want to interview, and we would be asking one of those people to come the very next day. Now, that happens, that's as plus more that will be recommended to you. I will have had a personal conversation with them and to verify that they're still interested, that if offered, they would accept the position, let them know what your interview days are, et cetera. But that's something that, we could go backwards, since you have to have a special meeting on the 27th. If you want to move that up, we have some flexibility there. I'm trying to avoid the 20th, which is a federal holiday. But we could move that date up sooner to give you a few more options for interview days, which now that I realize that you have to call a special meeting anyway, I think that would be my recommendation so that you're not quite so tight on your interview options. Sometimes it's good to have a flex day in there in case for some reason a candidate can't fit into the ones that you offered.
And we do have the option, if they can't, just having an off schedule that we create, correct?
Yes. So when we talk about interviewing, one of the things we'll really emphasize is we want to make sure every interview is comparable and that they have the same experience. But yes, assuming we're just talking about adding a date and not who's present, because what is really, really important is that every single one of you is at every single interview, because each candidate needs to have the same kind of experience, and you need to see every candidate in order to really be able to give appropriate input into who you want your first and second choice to be.
Dr. Weisman, since the KSB screenings are supposed to be done by the 21st, if we go to the 22nd or 23rd?
Certainly, and I can even move up that screening. I have some flexibility to move that up, so don't let that 21st bind you. That date, I can be flexible. I could even potentially have it be the same day and schedule that final screening panel in the morning and then come to you that evening. So don't let that date worry you. I look more at creating the space for interviews and then what works best for you to schedule a meeting.
Right. So if we leave the interviews that last week of February, essentially the 27th through the 1st of March, are any of you available the week prior, like the 22nd, 23rd? If we have a meeting that evening, is anyone totally not in the area, not available?
You're talking February now?
Yes.
February 27th through March.
Well, to do the meeting prior to meet with you, it'd be the week prior to the 27th. So I'm thinking at the 22nd, 23rd, 21st. Is everybody available? Is there a better date than others? Is there a no-go date for anyone? Like absolutely not Wednesday?
No-go dates, just.
I just want to avoid spring break.
This is all before spring break.
I'm
This
just
is all
saying,
before spring break.
you don't have to look at me anymore. That's my only concern.
But it's like, is a Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday better? Because that Monday's the holiday.
Thursday. If I had to pick,
Thursday.
I don't have an intense burning indifference to all of those dates.
Any preference?
Wednesdays are better for me because I only work half of a day on Wednesday, and I can guarantee that I can be here with plenty of time, but I can make Thursday work.
Okay.
Are we looking at Thursday the 23rd?
It'd be the 22nd or 23rd, I think. Ms. Murphy, either day? Are you in town?
I'll make it work.
Mr. Carney?
So why don't we do Wednesday then for?
Yeah.
Wednesdays, that'd be the 22nd?
What time are we looking at?
It's February 22nd,
February 22nd.
6 o'clock.
And this is for you to discuss all of the
all of your
applicants.
applicants and the screening and
And that will all be-
recommendations.
How much time do you recommend for us?
So you may want to continue to meet after I present to you.
Okay.
So I would like for you to allot at least an hour for me to present to you, and then allot at least an hour after that, if you need to, amongst yourself, continue those conversations about who you want.
And this is to narrow down
This is
the choices
to make that
interview.
determination of who you will actually interview. So typically, I've left, driven an hour, 2 hours, however far away I am home. And when I get home, I get a call from Judy telling me who you decided that you want to talk to.
Okay.
But sometimes, like, you see them, the way they align, it's clear and there's not that much to talk about. It's just so hard to predict.
Is 6 o'clock still a good time for you to be able to get off of work and come?
Yeah, 6 o'clock is perfect time.
All right. So we'll have special meetings on the 1st of February starting at 6, and on the 22nd of February starting at 6.
But that one's just an executive session
That one,
meeting
yes. But
on
it's
the
still-
22nd.
we still come through and do the meet and go.
Because the February 1st one is open to the public. Anybody can
Yes.
come and hear that. We'll be out here
Yep.
in the room.
Yeah.
Mhm.
What time is it? 1800?
6, yeah, 1800 on both.
And I didn't pull up what these dates are, but we're using February 1st for focus groups. So the survey will be open the week prior to whatever those dates are, just prior to that February 1st. So I will work with Brenda on that. And then probably I'll have my screening team still on the 21st then. You'll have a special board meeting on the 22nd at 6 o'clock also. And then you will plan to interview February 27th through, what is the date of the Friday of that week?
The 3rd.
The 3rd, okay. So March 3rd.
Are we all in town that week?
And that obviously will depend on how many candidates you choose to interview. If you choose fewer than 5, which I anticipate you will, I would recommend you not use the Friday. Typically for scheduling, we find that works better. But one of the things when we make those personal phone calls to the people that we think are most likely to be recommended to you, we ask what conflicts they have during the dates that you've identified. So when I present that to you, if there is a candidate that we think is one you want to look at and they have unavoidable conflicts during that week, I'll let you know that, and then those you can make decisions on what we do.
Mr. Carney is saying that the week of the 27th through the 3rd, he is unavailable to attend anything in person.
Starting the 3rd.
Oh, starting the 3rd.
Yeah.
No, we would be done by then.
So it would just be in that process of finalizing the contract with the superintendent that you're a final candidate. Okay, so other questions related to the timeline then? Okay, so I think then your next order of business is who you want your stakeholder groups to be for the focus groups.
So I think the recommendation so far is we have a group of classified, certified administrators, students, and community members that we appoint or have invites to. Does anybody else have groups that they want addressed? That's 5 groups already.
Well, I think that we should definitely have like a group of site council representatives that, from each of the buildings. And I know our site councils are supposed to encompass parents and staff and all of that. So how would that would be determined? Would we see how many are available and interested and then select from those, or?
We could contact them and say, hey, would you
Who's
like to have a
available?
representative represent you to this stakeholder meeting?
So the building principals could reach out to the
Right.
site councils to garner interest to see who would be interested in serving on that committee, and then report that back.
Would we
Or we
consider
could-
that a separate group from the community group?
So,
I-
yes, I
I
think
just want to
that,
clarify.
I think that the site council, in previous experience, I'll just go from previous experience for me. So you had the group where, as she said, I met with classified employees, I met with certified employees, I met with, and sometimes you can, like here, it was combined with certified and classified. And so I met with them, and I met with the board naturally, and then I met with a community group that seemed open at the time. So that was my process here.
So part of what may align exactly with that, and that we'll talk about when we want this to happen, but on your interview day, so the groups that the candidate meets or that you have available may or may not be the same kinds of groups that you had for your focus groups. But that is a good way to think through that process, because as you think about who you want your finalists to be able to meet during the interview day, that may give you insight into who you want to participate in developing those characteristics. But they don't have to be the same. I guess that's the point.
So as I understand it, then we have students, classified, certified, admin, site council, and a community group at
That's
this point.
6.
So I guess my question to you, ma'am, would be, how does that fit in what you've seen in effective organization of site count or these?
So tell me again, you
groups?
said students, classified,
Classified,
certified.
certified, admin, site councils, where we get, a broad mix, and then a broad community group.
That is a very typical configuration. The only thing that varies is for those communities that choose to have like a local business organization or chamber or economic development group. Sometimes in a district that's getting ready to try to pass a bond issue or something, and there's a likelihood of one of the characteristics that is going to be really important is somebody that's able to manage that kind of facilities issues, as well as the process of building support for a bond. That might be a time you would want to think through having one of those.
Yeah.
But it would be a very typical structure.
So within these groups then, Madam President, are we looking at the community also defining how we want to pull people into, the first 5 are pretty straightforward. It's internal to the district organization pretty much. But the community group, do we want to specify who we would like to target? Because we have.
Like 3 from the chamber,
Yeah.
3 from Main Street, 3 from
Yeah,
the
exactly,
economic
'cause we have-
development, city commission.
So many of those are deeply engaged in our district.
I understand.
So, right. So do we need to talk to that, or are you going to come up, what's the right way to figure that out?
Well, I think we do have to,
I
have a
think if we
number
did-
from each group. We have to figure out who those groups are.
That's what I'm getting at,
Right.
identifying the groups. Do we want to hold off, since we've got the broad groupings listed? Do we want to hold off and just have Brenda and the district gather our thoughts on who the right vested groups are later this week? Or, what makes sense? So we're able to give this some thought, because that one, I think we need to give some thought.
But don't need an answer tonight on that.
Yeah, okay.
Say by Friday, maybe? Would that work?
Is it possible to do that in like a Friday review where you ask us for our thoughts on that and then you gather that information, or is that a violation of something?
Robert, can we do a thought exchange with the board to where that they can see what they're thinking, since they're not making any decisions, they're making recommendations?
Yeah.
I would argue on a no.
Yeah.
Because it's engaged amongst all the board. And I think it's not that
what if they would put that in minutes? Take the transcript from the thought exchange and put it in minutes, where it's open to anybody can see all the thought exchanges.
The issue is the meeting, because it's not just open record.
Hmm.
So
Mhm.
having the thought exchange, even by email, is more than one or two people, it's more than two people because of the meeting, and therefore has to be.
I mean, honestly, if you sat here and look at the ones that she was talking about, take 3 people from the chamber, 3 people from economic development, 3 people from Main Street, 3 people from city commission and city offices, you now have 15 people. You've already got your good core group. And if somebody doesn't pick up from one group, maybe we can grab another one that's there. But I mean, this
Maybe
is the
if we
one.
do 2, because that gives us a little broader range, because I mean, we still have people who probably want somebody representing the foundation. I mean, there's maybe a few other groups. I
Right,
agree
but,
with
but
you.
Education Foundation could actually go in with site and PTO.
The only thing
Maybe.
with 3, like city commission, I'm not sure if they
Yeah, that's
fall
what I
under
was
the same.
Yeah.
2 of them.
2, yeah. Right, but I mean,
Two-
you have
two.
Paul Kramer who works with the city commission as that.
Just somebody
so-
from city hall.
Right, right,
Okay.
because that's
Sorry.
still commission core. So you could office, 3 from chamber, 3 from Main Street. I mean, that, and again, even if you did more than that and had 18, you still have smaller than a 20 group and have 3 from the foundation. Or another volunteer organization that impacts the community, maybe 1 from CASA, 1 from, wherever else. That speaks to how people take care of other demographics within the community.
Okay, we got it.
Does that make sense to you all? Does that work for you all?
Mhm.
Main Street had 3 people.
Yeah.
The whole board.
Main
be the
Street
whole-
has over 30
Oh,
businesses
it's
that
the
participate
members.
regularly.
It wouldn't be just their staff.
We would be asking Main Street to provide 3 participants.
So
think
if
they do
you,
now, though.
if you make those broad parameters, then you could direct your president then to finalize the details of it if you
Because they could put it out and just say the first 3 that volunteer to do this.
Sure.
Okay.
I think that I would just ask that on that one, there at least be 2 positions for people from the community at large to volunteer. However we produce that, because I mean, we pretty focused it, but we need to make sure that others get an opportunity, so.
Well, and they'll have the opportunity to do the
For this
online survey as
survey?
well.
Right.
Like,
Right.
I
It's the broader
anticipate
sort of
people
community.
from the focus groups would also have the opportunity to do the online
Yes.
as a broad.
Yes.
And then if they were selected to do the focus
Yeah.
group separately.
Yeah,
We're
that's
opted
the
to.
only thing I'm about, I really would like to see 2 at-large
Yeah.
community positions.
Okay. So in terms of scheduling, so we're looking at 6 groups. And then, so I don't know, would you be willing, Mike, to assist in the scheduling of those groups around the parameters with employees?
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely.
Miss Brenda, since the board office is busy that day, or is it busy with our staff that,
We can move it around.
okay.
All right, so I think it sounds like we have what we need to get that scheduled. So so there are a couple of options to do this. One of the things that I will need to do with you is work a little bit more on the actual interview process. And you also will need to determine what the schedule for each candidate will be on the interview day. But during the time that we're meeting, I need some time to work with you to talk about the questions, kind of some of the legal parameters, to assist you with that. So one of the things that I want to throw out to you now is we have sample questions in here now that shouldn't have much meaning till you know what your characteristics are. So it's not like you should start deciding, exactly what your questions are going to be. But if you can begin to think through a process where once you've determined what those final characteristics are, you've got a process in place to really start to define what your actual interview questions are. One of the things that I've seen done in some districts is every board member is asked to submit, sometimes to the clerk, sometimes to the president, 3 questions that they think are important. And then we try to get that narrowed down, and then you make a final decision probably that night that we do the screening. That needs to be an executive session. You don't want questions being asked in an interview, part of public information. So a little bit of that time where we're presenting candidates to you, we need to allocate to finalizing those interview questions. Typically, I worked pretty closely with the board clerk in helping to nail down the logistics of getting that done.
So any of that, Marcia, can it be done at the next regular board meeting in February?
And so your next regular board meeting is when again? So it's oh, yes. Okay. Yes. That is following the characteristics. Yeah. Good. Okay, that's all right. And then the final thing is candidates that request more information. And one of the things that your finalizing of these characteristics does is really give me good information when potential candidates call and want to know more about, what the board's looking for. It's amazing how much I can glean about the district by working with the focus groups and able to share, typically there's so many wonderful positive stories that come out of meeting with those groups that we're able to share with candidates. But one of the things that will be a little bit unique to you all is kind of your succession plan or your overlap plan. So as you can kind of finalize what that's going to look like in terms of titles, timelines, it wouldn't have to be absolutely final, but definitely a framework that could be shared with potential candidates who are asking questions, so that they have that and they know what that would look like. That could end up being, something that could make a difference between somebody deciding to apply or not apply. It's a very unique opportunity in terms of having that kind of ongoing support when you slip into. And I keep looking at you because you get to do all the work related to this. Not everybody gets someone in-house to onboard them. So, but kind of just making sure you get that framework put in place. That's what I had for you tonight. Do you have other questions for me? I know I threw a lot of stuff at you.
This was great information. Thank you so much. This isn't necessarily directed at the search as it is when we've accepted. As KASB or the work that you do, can you help provide us what an onboarding would look like for a superintendent?
Yes, we can assist you with that. And then the other thing, don't forget that is part of our process is that we would like to have you invite us within, ideally within 60 days. Sometimes it doesn't happen that time. Could be July, but a goals and expectations session where your new superintendent, in this case, Mike and the board, and we do a process together of identifying your goals and expectations for your new superintendent, and your new superintendent can share their expectations and the needs they have to be able to be as effective for you as you need. So that's part of what we do in this process. We don't just walk away after you hire, and we want to help make sure everybody gets started on sure footing. And that information becomes very important then in your superintendent evaluation, so that you're evaluating them against expectations that have been set. So yes.
Any other questions for Dr. Wiesman?
So I did have a question. On the interview day, you were saying something about the candidate meeting the stakeholders?
So depending on how you structure that, and maybe at the characteristics meeting, that might be a good time to talk about structuring the schedule for that day. But very often, part of the day is the opportunity to meet various stakeholder groups throughout the day. And then the interview with you takes place in an executive session in the evening. But prior to that time, they've had the opportunity to tour the district, to meet various stakeholder groups. And so I'll want to talk to you some more about that. In your book, when you have a chance to go through it, you'll see some sample schedules. We suggest the whole day schedule as the best way for the candidate to see the district.
So it'd be like a meet and mingle expo.
Some opportunities for that. Also suggesting that you give them a block of time after the day and before their interview with you, some time by themselves. A lot of your candidates will be in other jobs, and they may need to be able to take care of some business back home. So we don't want you to book every single minute of the day. Give them a little chance to take care of business too. So.
Any final questions for Dr. Wiesman? All right. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much.
Okay, item 5, consent agenda.
Madam President, well, before I make a motion, does anybody want anything removed from the consent agenda? Madam President, I move that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Second. Okay. All right, motion by Mr. Powell, second by Ms. Reed to accept the consent agenda as presented. All of those in favor? 7-0, thank you. All right, moving on. Item 7, consideration of Horizon annual renewal. Dr. Rose?
Ms. Beth?
So as you had the information in the agenda, the district uses a program called Horizons, and that is the child nutrition software that the district uses to not only track meal money for students, but also free and reduced lunch applications and number of meals served, the type of meals that are served, free, reduced, and full pay. And we compile that information and use that to submit for the claim each month for the money we receive from KSDE for the reimbursement. We have to have this software in place. The district is responsible for doing that process. That's our responsibility.
Any questions
So
from Ms.
it's an annual renewal, so we have to renew that every year.
And just because we're going to come up with another discussion later, just want to be clear for everybody that even if we change our method of delivering meals, this still is going to be a requirement and will require the software.
That is correct.
Okay. Any other questions from Ms. Beth?
Where does this requirement come from?
Comes from KSDE.
Okay. And is this software the only software that we can use for this?
We've had a
Requirement.
long, the software gosh, I don't remember when we put this in, but this is the software the district has used for many years.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the renewal of the software for $13,553.83.
Second?
Thank you. We have a motion by Ms. Murphy, a second by Mr. Goodman to accept the Horizon annual renewal. All those in favor? 7-0. Thank you. Okay. Item 8, resolutions 22-23-019 and 22/23-020 for officer elections and meeting dates.
So when the board several years ago, or a couple years ago, went to keeping the officers and setting meeting dates in July, the resolutions have to be read in January stating that you're using the July model. So this is really a formality for business because until the board changes that they want to move to January, this would be ongoing every year.
So is there something I need to be reading?
Huh?
Is there something I need?
No, the resolutions 22-23-019 is for the officer elections and 22-23-20 is for meeting dates, which you've already established. The only requirement is that you vote to approve those resolutions and then you sign them prior to leaving this evening.
Okay.
Madam President, I move to the adoption of the following resolution, whereas KSA 72-1138 requires Board of Education at the first meeting on or after the second Monday in January or a later date during the calendar year, if so determined by the board at the first meeting, to adopt a resolution to establish a regular board meeting dates, times, and location, as well as alternative date and time being a meeting of the regular meeting date falls on a Sunday or holiday. Whereas the Board of Education must each year on and after the second Monday in January and before February 1st of each year or later during the calendar year to establish its meeting dates and times and locations. Be it resolved pursuant to KSA 2019 Supplemental 72-1138, the Board of Education Unified School District number 453, Leavenworth County, Kansas, at its meeting on January 9th, 2023, does hereby adopt this resolution. Establishing the following meeting schedule, first meeting on or after the second Monday in January before February 1st. So I'm lost because it's check mark. Which
That's okay. I think the fact that you've
to the July, there we go. Establish the day of week of the month, time, and location of regular Board of Education meetings and any alternative meeting dates to be held during the 2023-2024 school year at the July 2023 board meeting. If established meeting date falls on a Sunday, a legal holiday, or a holiday specified by the Board of Education, each regular meeting will be held on the day following, commencing at the same hour and location as detailed above. The Board of Education serves the right to adjourn any regular meeting to another time or place.
Second?
I need
Right.
new contacts or a bigger screen.
need a motion by Ms. Murphy and a second by Mr. Goodman to accept resolutions 22/23-019 and 22/23-020. 22/23-020. Okay. All of those in favor? 6-1. Thank you. All right. Item 9, alternative school pilot program. Dr. Roth?
Do we need to do the other resolution?
I was going to say, I think we need to do the other resolution as well, don't we?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, to read both of them. Well, that's why I asked. Do we need to
No,
read them?
you can just read the title of 019 and what it pertains
And
to.
that's what I.
Yep.
But
So
okay.
you can just say resolution to establish election of school board officers, resolution 22-23-019.
Second.
I can't make that motion. I can't make some of
We
it.
already did the long one. It's ditto and second.
So
And
dash
Robert's
19,
not
so dash
amused.
20. Or 020. Okay,
Judy Price
Okay.
sure.
made the motion.
Establish the board's regular meeting dates. All right, and a second.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Burke. Since we'll try to be more official. How's that? All of those in favor? 6-1, thank you. All right. Now, number 9, alternative school pilot program. It's been long.
Yes. So last time we met, we talked through, so kind of where we're at in the process. We advertised for teachers and we advertised for possible part-time admin. We've had to this date no teacher applications for it. We've had a couple of interests to it, and we also have the post possibly having some interest as well. But right now we have no teacher applicants for that. So what we'd like to do is continue moving forward. Dr. Riddleberger and her team will meet with counterparts at the post and create parameters that are like what we do for Third Avenue, but it would be regular ed. And so what we would do is create the parameters to create the program. Matt and his crew, we've already identified the building or the classroom at Nettie. We've already started the process of changing over that. So really just want to keep the process moving to where we get to a point where in February, at the February board meeting, we'll bring the parameters, we'll bring all the cost factors, we'll bring everything to you at that point in time to see if it's something that you still want to move forward with. If not, the classroom is still going to be ready for eventually adding this program. But I will tell you, taking it through the entire strategic plan process, we have everybody has been through the process district-wide, except for our parent surveys going out this week to get their input on that exercise. 100% of almost every group that can possibly put, or the information coming to the top after every group, almost 100% of all the categories has student behavior identified within that. And again, this is trying to listen to that process as early as we can, get it in front of you as a board to try to continue to move forward. Dr. Mispagel up on post is briefing his board in, I think, the next week or two about the same process. Well, I sent some preliminary staffing numbers that we're looking for and that we believe that we would need to get his input as well. But really the next step is Kathy and her counterparts up on post to create some parameters that would fall and guide how we would get kids in and out of the program.
I have a couple of questions about that.
Okay.
The size of this classroom, about how many students will it
So
maintain?
with the parameters that we talked about the last time, we're looking at no more than 12.
12.
Ideally, the classroom is big enough for more than that, but we really felt like a 10-to-1, a 12-to-1 max per certified teacher would be ideal. So we were looking at trying to start small to make sure that we do it right, and then possibly expand as we get more interest or more need or more staffing.
So the next question, if you wouldn't mind reminding me the age group
So
dynamics of this are
we're
going to
focusing
be
on K-3
K
overall.
through 3.
In the first classroom, depending on once we get the parameters and building administration or teachers make recommendations of what students qualify for this, including up on post, it may be a K1, it may be a 2-3 based on the highest numbers within that age group.
When I did a walkthrough with Mr. Pell and Ms. Murphy, I seem to remember the administration there stating they felt cramped for space.
So I'm not sure where they would be cramped for space at. We talked about the 18 to 21 program needing more space, but that was for more life skill type things. Kathy, I'm not sure if you want to speak to space, but the space that I'm aware that really need to be expanded is the 18 to 21 program. And that's why we were talking about possibly adding a house in the back. But parents as teachers, we've realigned or restructured that. So we captured one of the larger classrooms without much
'Cause they're kind of at
alteration to
Lawson
theirs.
now,
Right.
right? And then there seemed to be some cosmetic, like lockers were smashed in and stuff. Has that been fixed?
Haven't really, I was over there. We walked through that building a month ago. Didn't see. Now Matt and his team has changed out lockers and made them more cubby spaces. But we'll definitely look at any of the locker needs. But the students coming over there would have ample space to store anything that they would need for the program.
I just wanted, I was sad at the time that we did the walkthrough, and that was many months ago, just feeling like the building needed attention, especially cosmetically, and especially if we're bringing younger students in, I would definitely want the
Right.
building to be more.
And so one of the things that you
vibrant.
will see in a future meeting as we review and Matt reviews the strategic plan process, and part of the ESSER 3 application, we were looking at some windows, some air conditioning units, and things like that. That's going to be a major decision that this board will endure sometime between now and the next budget cycle.
Thank you.
It may have no impact at all, but it's something we haven't talked about, and that was environment, which was triggered. Thank you. Colors and color of lighting, a number of different factors affect many of the kids that have issues in our classrooms now. Not that it would change everything, but will we be able to have, kind of study the environment that we're creating to see if there's any way that we can improve the mood and emotional impact on the already troubled students that we'll be bringing in here?
Right. So one of the things that we're doing to get the room prepped right now is that we had some stock carpet, the carpet squares like this carpet, that we're looking at adding some carpet areas to that room, if not totally carpeted. Matt and them has already got it scheduled for to look at some paints. Lighting look through natural light and just the classroom lights. That was one of our better areas as far as that. So we feel like to start with or to go, we have a lot of the things in place. Naturally, as we see like trigger points, or if we see any escalating and that we can tone down through colored lights or dimming the lights or things like that, that would be something that we could definitely add. But we're already looking cosmetically at changing some things within that room at a low dollar amount or stuff that we already have on hand to be able to make that more of a feel like classroom.
Right. The other danger would be the overstimulation.
Right. And then it'll be the walls. And if anybody ever asks, Matt really likes basic colors because they're easy to repaint. So most of that would be taken care of because Matt's in charge of this restructure of that classroom. I only say that because he's here and I know that he's doesn't like the spotlight.
And he's always a calming influence.
So is it wise that we continue moving forward with this when we have no teachers interested in teaching?
Well, one, eventually, whether it starts in, we're hoping that we could start this in sometime February or March. If not, you have all the parameters because this is something not only our staff, but I think our community, as more parents are talking about kids that come in and doing everything that they're supposed to be doing, having to leave a classroom because of constant behavior change. We're starting to get more involvement of that. So as a board, as a district, as a society, we're going, because behaviors are changing rapidly, not only in Leavenworth, but nationwide, statewide, regionally. And so more of these types of classrooms, more of these types of programs are going to be needed.
I guess a follow-on to the question is, in the February meeting, Eric, because I didn't hear you say it, are you going to look to try to provide us potential staffing alternatives? Because some we've talked about.
Yes. So in February, what our hope is that we have the entire program lined out and ready for you as a board to look at, to ask questions, to dive into. If at that point in time we need to set something else up, we would be able to do that. But what we're trying to do is reach out to other areas that have programs like this, but also work with the staff from the Post and our staff to kind of create what behaviors are we seeing, what would require the behavior analysis, what would require all of the different things that would go into play in this. And so what we're looking at is just to continue with the process, to be able to get all of the information. I'm wanting to keep it at the forefront, as transparent as possible is what I'm trying to do by continually giving you updates where we're at.
Is there any action that you need from our board for this?
I would
at
say
this
if you
point?
just want to make a motion to continue with the process with another
Planning
update in
Yep.
February, that would be suffice.
Madam President, I move that we authorize the school administration and superintendent to move forward with continued planning and development of our alternative school pilot program.
Second. Oh, go ahead, give it to Jeff.
Thank you.
Okay. We have a motion on the table by Mr. Powell and second by Mr. Goodman to authorize continued planning of the alternative school pilot program. All of those in favor? 6-1, thank you. All right, item 10, consideration of Kansas Association of School Board Policies update.
This is a first read of the
Is that-
oh, sorry, this is IF.
Can we
next
have
one's
a
the first
bio
read.
break before we begin discussing?
Sure. 5 minutes. I guess we need a motion to go into bio break.
I'd like to make a motion to take a bio break. We'll return in the room at 7:57.
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Murphy and second by Ms. Reed going to a bio break to return at 7:57. All those in favor? 7-0, go.
7 seconds past 8.
Oh, here we go.
Item 10, consideration of Kansas Association of School Boards Policies update.
Madam President, I've got a motion to present. Actually, I have two, so the second one doesn't get lost in it, but it's based upon discussions we've had in the past and concerns I expressed before. And it has a limiting factor built into it. And the reason why is because for people outside of the community, because I mean, that's the double-edged sword that I think people haven't considered, is if your policy is too open, then you can have people that have no vested interest in to take care of our kids using this policy against us. So that's the only limiting factor. So, Madam President, I move to adopt the policy as presented with one other change, with the incorporated amendment. First line of challenge of materials, replace student, parent, or legal guardian with person residing within the Leavenworth USD 453 district boundary.
Can we discuss?
Well, we need a second and then it's got to be discussed.
Well, I mean, this sounds like it's a change that we have to vote on.
Right, but we're supposed to be able to discuss it, and I'm going to offer
is this-
another change.
Is this the motion to discuss?
No, this is the motion to
Because-
make a change.
He's offering it to change that plan.
That there's probably more issues beyond the single issue that is animating a lot of people. I agree with that. There are also other changes that I would like to ask about.
I have 5.
Additionally, with the graduation requirements as well. So I anticipate that if we have to make a motion and a second for every single change, this is going to be a long meeting.
Okay, so can I make a suggestion that we have discussion first before we make any motions?
Okay.
But first
Yes.
discussion, 2 separate ones. So it's I have
Okay.
one policy, so that's its own.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Okay.
GSCA. So
Then
not
let's
slate 2.
then we should do the IF textbooks policy first,
Mhm.
have a discussion on it, and then we can make
The motion.
an omnibus
Madam
of
President, I withdraw my
changes.
motion.
Should we need to do that?
We're open for discussion.
Okay.
If I may, on this, and I lean to Mr. Powell, I agree that needs to be changed. I had no problem with the way we had persons written there, but do understand not having that, like people from Johnson County and coming in. I know Mr. Powell, myself, and 3 other members of our community, one of which was here, sat and spent weeks working on trying to figure out challenges to any curriculum and materials within the media center. And we met with all the librarians and all the media centers as well. And I'm not blaming our district. Our district did not do this. We had our policy based on the work that we had already done prior to the summer coming. I can go ahead. I don't care if they want to put me under a microscope. I point my fingers at the state for this. And the problem with just limiting it to what Mr. Powell just stated, it excludes teachers.
Right. We'll just
It
realize that.
excludes teachers. And that's one of the main people you cannot be excluding for this. You can have all the teachers, but then all of a sudden have something that one teacher may not agree with. And even the way he's read it, that prohibits them from challenging. So we need to make sure that we are taking into account, and not all teachers live in our district. They may live in another district. Thereby, would that exclude them because they lived in another district? So they should be able to have the rights to challenge that. I just was really a little bit appalled that the state would want to censor. Our goal was to properly curate materials, not ban materials. And curation is graphics. You wouldn't, and I've said it before, you wouldn't be handing kids Playboys and Penthouse and Hustler in the media center. It wouldn't be appropriate for any age from pre-K through 12. So this purpose of this was to make sure that things could get challenged should something have gotten missed or slipped in. I just find it sad that after being accused of trying to ban and censor books, then the state literally came in and tried to censor our constituents. And I had a huge problem with the state doing that.
Can anybody list an example of when person was a problem? I mean, that's the way it currently reads.
So that was when this whole thing occurred last year, where kind of initiated and got this whole ball rolling. I went into this all the schools, the stakeholder schools that this was going with, and I was informed that we've only had 5 challenges to books since the history of forever. I guess nobody could give me a time frame, so I'm just assuming that there's only been 5 challenges, and these 5 challenges have all come from within parents being objecting to these things. So I'm not certain that we're not pursuing a solution in search of a problem. I understand it could be a problem. It potentially could be a problem, but I don't know that it hasn't been a problem in the past. All of the people that are really interested in the school books that we have, which is completely and totally searchable online right now. Anybody on the planet can come and look and see what books we have available in our media centers. And we've not had this issue of every Tom, Dick, and Harry
coming
into
outside.
town saying, hey, you can't have this particular Dr. Seuss book or whatever.
Sorry.
And so I just, without having a long, wordy, this person can object and this person can't, it really does kind of limit us when we change it from person to, a very long list of qualified people, because in certain cases, you're going to have legal guardians that they don't care about their students, but they're going to have an uncle who is genuinely, or a grandparent who is genuinely interested in the welfare of the child.
You have neighbors who are tutoring.
You have neighbor groups. You have all sorts of community members who should have a say, considering we have local businesses that are going to be looking for our students to be their future employees, and volunteers, and generally just productive members of society. So every member of our community is going to have a vested interest in how well our students are doing, and that means, are they getting access to appropriate books? So I understand the problem that could lurk out there, but I don't know if that justifies just carte blanche excluding everybody except immediate stakeholders.
And to lean in on that, I cannot tell you how many times I've heard this board sit here and be briefed out that kids may have parents, but the parents may not be present. The parents may be the ones with custody, but it's the grandparent or the aunt and uncle that's present in that kid's life that is still coming to the school to help resolve some of those issues. And then this just completely cut them out of the equation. And
The problems I have with this kind of stuff is it's coming from KASB, number one. It's not an issue that we had in our district. And so here we are having to push back against KASB's advice. And when we get these recommendations from KASB, there's no description given this happened, this happened, this happened, and this is why we're giving you this recommendation. It's just the recommendation with no back history. I think that's silly, to be polite about it. And then the collection development, they also want to change the word from a variety of content in various formats to diverse content in multiple formats. And I think we need to leave that the way it originally was for the same reason. What issues have we had with not being able to offer enough of a variety or in enough variety of format? As far as I'm aware, none. If we change that word to diverse, we open ourselves up to, and this sounds good on its face, including or involving people from a range of different social and ethnic backgrounds and of different genders, sexual orientations, etc., is just a simple Google of the word diverse. However, there's been a lot of hype about, do we do drag queen shows in preschool and stuff? And I think if we sign off on this, we're opening ourselves up for putting a stamp of approval on that. And I just am not comfortable with that for my preschooler. And so I'm not going to put a stamp of approval on that, for everyone in the district. And I think it's important for us to remember that the board still has the final say, going back to the other situation on challenges. It's not like we're handing it over to, somebody from the UK to challenge something and then we have to agree with their challenge. If the board still has the final decision, I don't see why any person shouldn't be able to shed light on something.
basically, in a nutshell, I thought our policy looked just fine the way it was already written, that we didn't need any of these states' input. We were working just fine.
The part that I, let's see, sorry, isn't this where the superintendent has the right to remove material when it's?
Well, it's at the end, it's the last page.
Under review
It's,
also?
Challenged materials may be removed from use during the review period, which quite honestly, the original reads, challenged materials shall not be removed
Right.
from use during the review period. So giving the superintendent the discretion to remove a questionable thing is, in my view, not necessarily a bad thing.
Right.
Yeah.
That's why I think there's some good changes, but we need to selectively decide what's right for our district.
Yeah.
Right. And I mean, the only other way to read that would be to say that the superintendent shall remove the item from use during the review period, but that's something that we can discuss.
Which I think I'm just trying to, guess about a classroom setting. If you're in the middle of reading, a book, whatever, 6 weeks or whatever, we're talking about, and somebody challenges it. Well, now what are you doing with your class? Now they all get the book pulled away that they're in the middle. I mean, I think that's why it needs to be a discretion, because there needs to be appreciation and respect for the teaching position, for the students and families involved in those situations.
So that would be a change that we would generally consider, because we can leave that up to the discretion of the superintendent whether or not it's should be pulled. The only other issue would be the meets with teacher, media specialist, or principal, wherein before it was strictly the principal. I don't mind this. If it can be resolved at the lowest level, that would be great. I would want some sort of mechanism by which, if there is a complaint, that it includes the principal and not, it would be an and instead of an or. So that
Media
there's
specialist and
media,
principal.
right, teacher, media specialist, and principal being, at least have visibility on something that could potentially be an issue. I like things being resolved at low levels, but I don't want there to be a case where the teacher decides it's not an issue, but the person thinks it's still an issue, and it just dies at that point.
Mr. Goodrich addressed that in the next sentence. It says that the concern is stressed to teacher, media specialist, they have to report to the principal. So that
Right.
concern is addressed.
Well,
That's reporting
unless the teacher decides they don't want to report it.
Then the teacher would be subject to this.
Right. But speaking to the microphone.
I was just pointing out the additional language because I think the language is there.
And I'd rather avoid, I'd rather have the mechanism be there right up front rather than, hey, now we have to go punish the teacher. Whereas before it's, if there's a complaint, it goes to all parties concerned. So that there's not that temptation.
I'm not getting into policy. I was just.
I know, I appreciate the lawyer's perspective.
Can you talk to me about that challenge of materials section? I just went back and forth with myself over whether we're saying if we change it that because it says, after receiving the completed form, the superintendent shall meet with the complainant to discuss the complainant request or something. I don't know what it's supposed to say. And then we're changing it to, after receiving the completed form, the superintendent shall review and consider the request. Are we taking out the ability of the complainant to meet with the superintendent? That's what I was trying to clarify.
Yeah, the way that I would read it is say that there's no requirement for the superintendent to meet the complainant.
Okay.
It's just that the superintendent shall review and consider.
There's currently no requirement for them to meet.
No, the new language says that the superintendent shall review and consider. The old language said that the superintendent shall actually meet the person bringing the complaint. So the current language prior
Okay.
to this red line, current language requires the superintendent to meet with the person.
And I guess that's important to me. I mean,
Yeah.
if I write down, fill out the form, which I hate, I think it's an awful form, but anyway, if I filled that out and I submitted it, and I didn't get that face-to-face, I mean, just using Dr. Roth as example, he might, at the end of the day, have no clue what my problem is. I think that face-to-face communication goes a long ways in every situation I can possibly think of. And that's important to me, to keep that personal approach to the situation in there.
So should we go ahead and just start from the beginning? And we have what's written with the selection criteria. There were no changes there. You go to the next for collection development. Do we figure out how many people want to leave it the way it is or go with the diverse verbiage that the state wants us to use? Or do we wait and put all these ideas down and then just do the whole thing in one?
I think that we should adopt the KSB's policy as they present it because they put in a lot of work into it and we pay them for this service.
Well-
My suggestion, so sorry, talking more than I think I've spoken last time.
No.
Just to move along on it, if there are items that each of you one separate vote and then vote on each other particular items where there may be issues. And then that will end with whatever the policy is.
I think going
Okay.
back to your original items, is that you like the original policy as we have it written, based as that what came from our committee work.
Right.
So for whatever new changes they're recommending, are there any new changes you want to adopt from the new language? If our current policy from our committee work is what we like,
Right.
is there any language from the new recommendations we want to adopt? Because I think what we want to say is that we like our policy as is right now,
Mhm.
but
It-
from
it
whatever
wouldn't
new
be bad to
language,
tweak it.
but I'm saying whatever new
slightly.
language, what do we accept for the new language?
So if I could read down through, maybe help frame this. On the collective development, is there any of the language there in that paragraph that we want to change
In our current policy.
in our current policy with the new language that's there?
No, I want to leave it how we have it.
Any other comment? Okay, go down to challenges of materials. I think this one, we do have language that we want to modify.
From our
Well,
current,
that we
Well,
want,
now, let me back up. Yeah, that's correct. From our current challenges of material, are anyone here
we don't
desire
have a-
us to accept the new changes?
for collective development.
Just the challenges of materials in the first paragraph.
Okay, now should these, so we're asking questions now, should we vote on, for example, putting forth a motion to preserve the original wording of the documentation, and we all vote aye,
and then it's the what
or
change?
or to accept the changes that were made?
No, it's going to be, our document would be the first motion is we accept ours as it currently
We
exists.
accept ours as
And
we
the
currently
tweaks
exist
are
for,
the following things that we accept from the new change.
okay,
I think that's what you're,
Yeah.
from listening to the
That's what
discussion,
it
I think
sounds
that's
like
what we're
we're
Yes.
asking.
So we have collection development. We like ours the way it is. We don't want to adopt any of their things.
So challenge materials then, do we like our document or is there any changes we want to adopt?
we do not want to make any
Changes
to
on the challenge
documentation
materials.
On the challenge materials, although there may be.
Okay.
Can I just make a motion to not accept KSB's suggestions other than the line challenged materials may be removed from use during the review period?
That's what we're doing right now.
Yeah, that's what we're doing.
That's what
We're
doing.
just
We're just not there
re-verifying
yet.
it section by
Which
section.
is not there yet.
Because everybody should get an opportunity to comment. So
Yeah.
Yes.
So we are, if I understood what was just said, the first paragraph of challenges and materials, we are satisfied with our current policy as it exists.
Correct.
Hearing no changes. Next one is if the issue outlined goes through that, are we satisfied with our policy versus the changes, accepting any of those changes?
I like ours. It encompasses a better group.
Any desire to incorporate anything? Then that paragraph is accepted as our original policy. Next one is composition of review committee. Actually, it's review committee. Are there anything in the first paragraph that we wish to accept from the new material? Nothing heard. The next paragraph is building principal.
Actually,
Okay, back to the first paragraph.
they have their spaces because they added extra things. Did anyone want to keep KSAB's written report?
Where is this?
Are we talking
Yeah, where are you
about
at?
whether the complainant still
That's,
receives?
we're not there yet.
Oh.
We're not there yet. We're
So
still
we're
on.
just on
we're still
second paragraph.
We're still
Oh,
on
we're still on
The
it. Okay.
structure
I
of
was at
the
Is there
review
any,
committee.
right, do you have any objections to any of the changes, or do we want to preserve?
I want to preserve what we have.
Any other comment to that? Okay. Next one was a complete ad, which is purview of the review committee written report. So purview of the review committee, do we want to accept any of that or just retain what's currently in our policy?
think ours is fine as it is.
So purview of review committee is not added. The written report, which was also a direct add by KSB, to your point, when you started a moment ago.
Right. I think it might be a good idea to have a written report, document. And that we adopt the written report verbiage.
The issue, the way it's written, is that the written report is directly related to the review.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the purview of the review committee. Does anybody have any objections to adding this? The review committee shall examine and evaluate the material as a whole, consider the district's policies, procedures, and philosophy for selection of textbook, instruction materials, and media center materials, weigh strengths and weaknesses, and form opinions based upon the selection criteria.
How is that different from what we currently
Yeah,
have?
because it
We
doesn't.
don't have this.
Yes, we do. See, it says preview of review. Ours is just the review committee shall. Here's the review committee here.
Oh,
But
that's
then the
right,
review
'cause it all
committee
gets deleted
shall is actually
later
the
on.
preview of the review committee.
That's right.
They just retitled it and it says almost exactly the same thing
Okay.
of what ours says here.
Okay, so it's just in a different location.
They just did it in
the
a different
documents.
worded format. Yeah. So ours actually still maintains the integrity of that. We
Okay.
would just add the written report to that review committee shall. If that
Okay.
makes sense.
Then I say we keep what we originally had.
And then add the written report portion here. So we have document.
There's already language in the original. So there's a written report.
Okay, very good.
Okay.
Then we're good there too.
So as of the paragraphs, the purview review committee and the additions that are listed there, we do not accept and retain our current one. Then the next paragraphs are if the board receives simultaneous challenges. Is there any reason that we feel that we need to accept that change?
What was that one line you said you liked in there, Jack, on that last paragraph?
The superintendent may remove them.
That was the next page, challenge
Yeah,
materials.
it's still a ways.
That's still, we're still down there. I mean, do we have language in there about receiving simultaneous challenges in the original document?
I don't remember any.
Then, I mean.
Are we getting so many challenges that we have to,
Well, if a new book comes in and it gets noticed and there are
18 people filing.
there are 18 parents that all of a sudden say, hey, we don't like this book, then rather than doing 18 challenges, I don't see a problem with it. being
encompass
pulled
it
in,
one.
So long as it's the same media item.
Mhm.
Well, is there anything currently stopping us from combining those? Or this is just about timing, right?
Correct. Yeah, I mean, the way that
Yeah.
the warrant is written, if you got 5 different complaints on 5 different days, you would have 30 days to complete.
And I think 30 days is already long enough. If I'm not mistaken, I think Lansing went to 10 when they went through this in
I
the,
think it's, the thing is you have 5 concurrently going at
Right.
the same time. So it's, and again,
It would-
you guys want to put on that committee. But
It would be
you
nice
guys
if we had something in writing that says, hey, if we get multiple objections to the same book, despite when it comes in, here is our policy on how we handle multiple.
So if I can take this to where we've got it, this paragraph of if the board receives, the board believes that can be added to our policy.
Yes.
I'm reading this as simultaneous challenges of multiple different materials. So like, it's not the same material being challenged simultaneously. It's multiple different materials being challenged. That's how I'm reading it.
Okay,
That's how I read it.
that is how I read it now.
And to point out the new language proposed by KSD, which I would just out of practicality or discuss. Their proposed language on page 4, where it says if you receive simultaneous challenges to the board unilaterally, you may say, look, if we need more time than 30 days, we can go and provide that 30 days unilaterally.
Okay.
That would be language that I would support.
Yes.
I would consider the second paragraph after it, just to discuss it.
Yeah.
Because it does talk about during the summer break. days.
Right.
And whether that 30 days would be told or not, that is something that's missing on, correct?
Yes.
That's just something you guys should discuss. on whether
I would support that change as well.
I would too.
So if the board receives simultaneous, are we saying that we want to accept that as modified?
Yes.
Because I think that's what we just did was,
What's the
I think-
reasoning for that? I mean, if I can ask you,
If there are
Congruent?
concurrent challenges.
no, I mean like the summer break thing. What's
How
the
long
thought
summer
process?
break?
Huh?
How long
More
summer
than
break?
30 days.
Yeah.
By the time you get the challenge in there, summer's already over.
I think part of it,
Manpower.
I didn't write this, so I don't know, but I'm
Yeah.
assuming, having been around the district for
Yeah.
as long as I have, would be that when you have committee together, are those individuals going to be?
It's hard during summer.
During
Mhm.
summer.
Is what you're
Right.
Or spring
Particularly if
break.
they're teachers or anything like that,
Right.
would they be able to work?
Okay.
and they can still conclude the action within the first month of the school coming back, or when everybody comes back, because they come back early.
Correct. So I've no objection to adding this.
Granted, if you want, technically, you're worried about that second paragraph about summer break. Technically, the paragraph before it, because the board has unilateral decision to extend review times past the 30 days. If something came up before the break, under your power, the first paragraph, technically the board could extend that whole time if they wanted to, didn't want to worry about the break issue. That's
So would that language preclude the break? We wouldn't need it? Or is that what you're
I don't think you would
clarifying?
need it because the board may extend the committee's deadline to complete its review. It's just the board's decision. It's just whether you want, if something gets filed right before summer, whether you want to be diligent and you'll have to be diligent if you need to extend more time, or whether you want it to be an automatic basically.
So the if is the key paragraph
Mhm.
because of the authorities that are inherently built into it. Okay. So we're saying that we accept the if paragraph, the second no reviews
Mhm.
paragraph becomes unnecessary.
Right.
Board review and action. Are there any, because again, that's an ad from somewhere. Excuse me.
I don't mind this language either.
I don't either.
So anybody on the board who disagrees with incorporating board reviews and action?
I'm just trying to track the language.
Yeah. Hearing none, that also would be incorporated in the new policy. Doesn't it say somewhere that the decision of the board is final somewhere else? I mean, the board is always the final authority. Does that need to be in there?
I would add it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
It's not.
is there any concern of adding the decision of the board is final?
No.
As written? Okay.
No.
Moving on, removing challenge materials.
The only
What?
thing is, sorry, as you're reviewing this, there's the strike part for review committee shall make determined. But I assume you're saying you want to.
Yeah, okay, so we're,
That's all. Just trying to keep this.
yeah, because I think that one is, we said we were going to keep our policy.
Our
Right.
policy with your.
So strikeouts wouldn't count. Yep.
Right.
Good point. So we're moving to removing challenge materials. Challenge materials may is the first paragraph.
Yes.
Is there any, that's the one I think where there was some agreement that we wanted to keep that change. We wanted to give the superintendent the authority to remove as necessary at discretion. Anybody have a problem with that first paragraph?
Nope.
So then we accept the changes to the challenge materials. Next one is the impact of simultaneous requests. So this almost sounds redundant.
Sorry.
Good tune.
Pick us up a little bit.
Interested earlier.
Was that TikTok?
Somebody else necessarily need.
I love that.
Right.
We already addressed
Okay, so we are saying that we will decline the change, which leads us to the end of the document. So as I gathered, there were 4 changes
I've got
we
4.
accepted.
I've got 4 so far.
Madam President, I move.
Would you like me to review the changes
Yes, I'm sorry.
before we go too far?
Before we go too far.
Can I ask the board one more clarifying question?
Mhm.
So on challenge of materials, the board's okay with somebody from Kansas City, Kansas challenging a book in your library.
If somebody from Kansas City, Kansas
Well,
figures something out,
They have no kids, they have no grandkids, they have nothing.
I mean, what's the problem with shining a light on something? They're having to go through and fill out all that paperwork that asks if they read the whole thing. You know, they have to say all the things. We haven't looked at that yet, but you know the
Still
form I'm
think they're
talking
in
about.
standing with the district.
So they're having to fill that out and submit it here.
So here's a question. The form that gets filled out. So we haven't talked, because there's a second form, there's a second part of it.
Yeah.
And there's perform, yeah, and there's red lines to that. What's our policy on the form being filled out? Is that something that has to be filled out?
If they make a
In
challenge
person.
currently, they have to fill out the form.
Okay.
No, it's online. They can do it online.
Okay.
And submit it.
And it's slightly different than the changes, like I said, the red lines.
Right. Okay. Because that would be something that we could do is, hey, if you've got a problem with it, come to the school, fill out the form, and submit it to the principal for it to be challenged.
I'm just
If
asking
somebody-
the board to
if-
consider it.
If somebody from Kansas wants to
Not trying
drive
to
all
limit
the way.
anybody not
Right.
trying to limit anybody, but you're a USD 453 with boundaries and all other aspects of the district.
So if we put any persons living in or working in
the district.
connected
Living in or
to
working
the
for-
USD 453 may make a challenge. That way it gives it the quote, family
And then
connection,
it gives
kids
you
in
teachers and
school,
employees.
family member in school, teachers that may live outside the district but work within the district, and so forth.
Yeah, and this isn't conceptual. It was before COVID, but there were some issues going on in the district, and I got emails and potential what could have been challenges from 3 different states, New York City, Los Angeles, California, and those came directly to my email. So, I mean, that's the question I think we want to ask. Do we want to leave, and create turmoil in our district? It might be opening it up, but do we want, because that's the flip side of not limiting it in the way that has just presented, is there's nothing that precludes any other organization with a vested interest outside, and again, I go back to, doesn't really care about our kids to get engaged just from an activist perspective. So
It also limits the organizations that do have a vested interest in our kids bringing light to things that you and I aren't sitting down and we're not even reading all the curriculum books. We're definitely not sitting in the library reading all the library books.
it's still, they still have an opportunity to work through the board or work through other agencies that we do have a vested interest, because we might not even agree with that. And bringing that material, I think, to the district. At some point though, we've got to frame this, because there's, and I'm not making it up. I got emails from all over the United States just because of one decision that the board was making. And if this is online, they don't have to go to the school and do it. That presents a real potentiality to just disrupt what we're trying to do in the district. Again, I'm thinking of the kids, and I'm thinking of the administration and the teachers. Now we convene a review board for the purposes.
Sir, you're not part of the discussion.
Yeah.
Sir, you're not part of the discussion. It's an open meeting. You can
Robert.
observe, but you cannot make any comment.
Would you happen to have any advice on where we said any person who worked or lived within our school district?
It depends on how broad or how that definition could be, because I know.
I mean, we're looking at taxpayers, whether they own a business, whether they have kids in school, whether they work for the district.
The listening to the other discussions, there was also, it's up to you on how you want to define it. I can draft whatever you want. There was also concerns about, well, if legal guardian, who maybe doesn't live within the district, but they're not a legal guardian, but a
a grandparent who's taking care of them in.
See something wants to present something, if you limit it to taxpayers, anything with the district, legal guardian, that would include that also. Or the flip side is if you say any relative, that can mean anything too, and that relative could
Be from
work for
California.
ACLU or, I remember the teachers union, the whatever, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
So it's up to you on how broad or how narrow you want.
This is kind of where I'm going with, without having a big, long list of people that we're excluding or including, it's difficult to say, hey, these people can do it, these people can't, except on a Sunday, if you live 3 miles and you've ever worked with us ever. So I kind of like the idea of, hey, if you have a complaint, you have to come to the office, fill out a form and submit that form. If somebody from Kansas City is going to drive all the way up here to fill out a form, okay. If the ACLU wants to drive
But
a
Jackie,
contingent here,
we put the forms online for accessibility reasons so people didn't have to physically come to our buildings.
The other thing, as far as the process, is that process first has to be, per our currents, that has to be the president first. Then you fill out the form. So technically, if somebody filled out
We're
the
already
form,
protected is what I feel
Right.
like.
protected by saying, sorry, you didn't follow the district.
Right. And we don't have a reason why we're having this discussion other than apparently KSB, is cared.
It's okay, we have that covered. You must meet with the principal before you do the form.
Can I make one more suggestion?
Sure.
Can I make a suggestion that we have Robert work with all of the notes that have been taken tonight, draft a clean version
Yes.
and do a first read in February
Yes,
and
please.
a final approval in March.
I love that idea.
And please, 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 we send these out as first reads.
That's the reason why.
Do it. Let us know so we can do that as much as we can. And then we'll submit it. You guys can look at it. We can put it online. We can do whatever. So everyone feels like their voices have been heard. And then you can vote on it in March.
Here's my thing about sending my voice being heard on email. Let's say my voice matched this voice, matched this voice, matched Mr. Carney's voice. You just have 4 voices in the email that matched, and that's technically a vote. And I just, that to me just.
You don't have to talk about.
No, we just say coincidence that we all happen to have the same thoughts in line as you saw that we agreed to this, that, or the other thing. If we all emailed those thoughts, then you get 4, that's a quorum.
No, because
Unless
you're
you do reply
only
all.
meeting it, you don't reply
not-
off.
we're not
You're doing
interacting
one
with
point
each
to point.
other.
That doesn't
Right.
violate
We're sending
COMA.
it to Brenda.
Right.
That doesn't violate COMA.
Some of this.
I'm just very careful with whatever I email.
We're getting close to attorney-client privilege recommendations. You're out of route. But I need guidance from the board. So most of these I already have, I know what you want. You want to go back to status quo, what was it? And then there's something that we're keeping. But with this particular definition, I appreciate Mike's and it's a good idea, but I can draft whatever you want, but I don't have a consensus on what you want. So I need guidance from you.
On that particular item.
What you're looking for, and even if it's in principle, so that I can look and try to put something together for you to review at the next.
So Robert, the only thing in question, if I understand you right, is that one line where we,
According to my notes, pretty much everything's been struck. There's a couple of bold provisions here regarding the review. And yeah, the only thing comes down to how do you want to limit, if you want to limit and change quote unquote persons to something else.
The problem is, what is the something else? And who does it exclude?
I'm pretty practical.
And
So,
I mean,
in my view,
it does
Give
sound,
advice, but here's my thing, I'll just consider for your guys' discussion. I do think it's one of these, while I understand that KSDs has put these recommendations in there, remember that if for some reason you decide to keep have never had an influx of complaints. If you do, you can change the policy.
Right. Okay, yeah.
So remember that just because you pass this today doesn't mean that the next
Can we
board
change
meeting
one
you can't revoke, because you either, one of you break it up and think, you know what, I went on it more, and I really think I would like to have a discussion on this. Or you get an influx of complaints or challenges, we're like, they're all from out of town, we need to change this. But that's up to you on how you want to decide that. I can define it, but considering what we've had the discussion today,
Yeah.
it's gonna be a pretty lengthy definition, which I don't have a problem with together.
Well, I think we've said the number one, there's a limitation in that you should be talking to the principal before you execute it. So that's a limitation. That's in there already.
Our original language.
And despite what I said earlier about the potentiality, it still does come down to the likelihood, and not just potential, but the likelihood. And at this point, the likelihood's pretty low. So from me as a board member, I'm good with retaining what we've got.
Yes.
I mean, speak up. I mean,
I'm in agreement. We have the motion to accept the, our policy as we've already written it, with the exception of the additions that we wanted to add from KSAB,
Which there's only
which there were only 3.
On this document.
Yes.
this.
4. I heard of 4.
You know,
Or maybe one of them
and
together.
someone maybe incorrect, but I'll go line by line. The only yeses I have are if we receive simultaneous challenges, so on the second to last page, that the board has the ability to extend that 30 days. We're gonna keep the one sentence, the decision of the board is final. And then we were gonna keep the language on removing challenge materials on the top of the last page, but impact of simultaneous requests. So that's
The
only
incorporate
three
board
changes.
review was language. Was that one thing we already
I
had?
think, Robert, you said that the board already had a review process, a board reviewing the process, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Keeping the
Okay.
original language.
Yeah, okay.
It's already a process.
Yeah, we've already got a
Yeah,
process.
it was just, that was when we were reading through.
Mhm.
Yeah, because by rejecting their changes, you're keeping the original.
So you'll draft that for us and then it'll be a first read next month?
If you want to, but because I'm not drafting any new language, you're literally just rejecting stuff. If you want to wait, you can. I'm happy to put it together in a cleaner format. But I'm telling you, it's literally just rejecting all their changes. Keeping three.
I'd like to make a motion to do the revisions with what we've rejected and accepted in our discussion on the board policy for IF textbook instructional material policy 12-12-22.
Now, do we have to vote on this all as an omnibus thing, or can we break it out by individual document?
Right? This is just IF.
We're just doing
Just
IF.
IF.
This is
It's
IF.
just
We'll
IF.
do-
Okay, well,
It's
that's-
just
We
IF.
established that up
That's what I'm
front.
asking. We don't have to vote on the whole package as a whole, as an agenda item. We can break this out into multiple votes. Okay.
So this particular vote is not gonna include the.
We'll do that next.
That's next.
Okay.
Or the form.
Yeah. the
Form.
form.
Yeah, you can make the form separate. from
Yep.
this.
Yeah.
Okay, then second,
I'd like to make a motion to accept the changes of the IF textbooks instructional materials policy of the 3 sections that we have adopted from KSAB while keeping everything else that we currently have,
second.
per the discussions we had here on the board.
So basically, the motion we have from Ms. Murphy and second by Mr. Goodman is that we retain our current policy with the addition of those 3 areas covering simultaneous challenges, board decision finality, and the superintendent ability to discretion. Yes. So all of those in favor? 5-2. Mr. Goodman.
Mr. Goodman.
And now the form.
So this particular matter that we're talking about now is the challenge form, right?
Yes.
I've looked at this form many times, and I think it's written with one thing in mind, and that's to silence anybody that would even consider or have a slight thought about challenging something. And that's why I stated earlier that I hate it. I think it's absolutely not saying, hey, parents, what can we do better at? What isn't working for your student? Is there something we could do differently? Those are the kinds of questions that I think need to be on the form. So I would just trash it completely. But talking specifically to this form, it says on item number 2, did you read or view all the material provided in the entire work? If not, how did you select the parts for reading or viewing? So when I picked up Fire Force, I didn't have to sit there and read all 10 books to know that the first one was egregious and should have never been purchased for the library, period. So would I fill out this form? No. Why? Because I'm not going to sit there and read all 10 volumes of nonsense garbage, in my personal opinion. That should have never been provided to our freshmen, and I don't think anybody needs it, but that's not my, I'm going to stay in my lane, obviously, but I think that that's not a good question. I think it's worded poorly for people to feel like we want their input. And I think we have a culture problem in this district. I think it's one of the large problems we have problem with staffing. And I think that this is kind of why parents aren't saying anything. Parents are afraid to say anything. They definitely don't want to contact a teacher. That's the last thing they want to do. They send their kid and they drop their kid off and they tell their kid to listen to the teacher, to do whatever the teacher says, to respect the teacher, at least if they're mean, okay? And you expect that the teacher respects what? Your child, your family values. They're not going to teach your student something that is against your household. So to me, it's just terrible. So
Well,
I don't know if we.
The problem I have with this is it's kind of overlong, and it's asking, these are a lot of cross-examination kind of questions.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a, what are the facts? So name of the author, name of the book, name of the media, whatever it is, what do you find objectionable in the material? Where is this objectionable material located within the book, page, paragraph, etc.? And that should be kind of it.
Yeah.
Honestly. The questions like, did you view all the material provided in the work? Well, no, I came across the part about the sexual act and I had a big problem with it.
Right. So I'm not trying to interrupt. I'm just asking for clarification. Like that in itself on specifically number 2, to your point, Vanessa, when you said that you found that, you said, I don't need to read any further. I think that's gone. Why not just say no? And I found this to be.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying, I think the form is intimidating. I'm asking.
It's kind of an unnecessary question.
Right.
Is
You
what I'm
got
getting at.
to what the material
It doesn't
do you
really matter
object?
if I read through the rest of the book. It's, did you find objectionable material?
Well,
this is what you found.
So as a longtime loving reader,
Right.
a phrase taken out of context of the entire book can
You don't
be
know the
viewed
context.
completely differently.
Yeah.
But if you finish the book, then you see why that rape scene was put in there, so
The
that you
full view.
understood the travel and the journey of that character. It's not there to be pornographic. It's there to
Well, it's
say
not
that
necessarily
this could
the,
happen, or to identify that situation is,
right. But typically,
Is it
that's
possible?
just an example.
Is it possible for us to add a line somewhere at the beginning of the form saying, if one of these questions you feel doesn't fully apply to you, feel free to omit or change or something
Well,
to
I
make them
would-
feel like they have the response.
If I'm filling out this form, if I don't feel like some of these questions don't apply to me or I'm not comfortable with it, then I definitely wouldn't answer it, but I'm still going to submit it because I have a problem with whatever it is. I don't think that I have to fill out all 50 questions whenever I only know the answer to 45 of them. I'm still going to turn in my answer.
I guess I'm listening and trying to sort out in my own mind. Kind of goes back to the changes in the first part of it. What is it this form is trying to achieve? I struggled with it. I actually filled it out and I used the process because I wanted to try it for myself. As I answered these questions, I went, what are we getting after here? I think we have a very smart group of people who work for this district, and I respect them and appreciate their feedback. I'm not so sure it's not time to just take this form out. We're going to do this review of the IF anyway, and let Dr. Roth and the smart members we have in our district come back with us with a form that asks questions that are relevant. What was your concern? Was it because it was not age appropriate? What is your concern? Is this rise to the level of pornography? What is it that, I'm just throwing that out as ideas. I'm not saying put it on there, but yeah, I struggled with this form. It just made it, there was no end state of me answering any question on there that was going to arrive at that material, whether it was appropriate or not.
Are you talking about our initial form or the one that's been with the changes?
Both of them, really. I have a problem with.
I mean, one of the questions is, what do you believe is the major theme of this material? And I felt like, am I going to be graded on this particular report? Is there a right answer? I really think for a form like this, it really needs to be succinct. It needs to be just the facts, ma'am, kind of form. Fill in your telephone name. How can we contact you? What was the name of the material that you object to? As many details, name, title, author, etc. And then what did you find objectionable? Can you give details? Page numbers are helpful. It really should just be kind of like paragraph form. What did you find objectionable about this material? And then
Please identify what was objectionable.
please identify, give as many details as you can. And
Why do you find it objectionable?
what would you recommend the school do with this material? I mean, if I find it objectionable, I want you to get rid of
It's
it.
a weird question.
It's not in its place. What material of equal educational quality would you recommend? I mean, that's
That's the educator's job, in my opinion.
that's not what this form is supposed to be doing. It's supposed to be, hey, identify material that's objectionable. We'll review it. If we decide it's objectionable, we'll take it out. If we don't decide it's objectionable, we'll keep it in. And then we'll bring, if it gets appealed, comes to the board, comes to us. We can look at it. We can say, hey, we don't think that this is objectionable. We're going to keep it. Board decisions are final. Thank you for submitting your form. And I mean, it's a good process, but it should really be one page. That's my objections to the form. It's just overly broad and overly long.
So as we do the revision of the policy, you're asking basically for a rewrite of the form.
Kind of.
And that's just
I
really a
hate to
motion?
say it, but it should be a really quick rewrite because there should be only a few
Is that your motion?
questions.
Is that your motion?
Yes, that is so moved.
Second.
And who's going to write the?
Just for the current time, that we want to inform, we just have a form available over the next month, because you've already voted to approve the IF changes. Which if you don't like the changes on here, reject them, then you can instruct
To come up with a new form.
and to call the form. And it makes it so
Yeah.
there is a form.
Okay.
Madam President, I move that as we've
Okay.
accepted the IF policy, that we retain the IF textbook instructional materials review form until such time as the district provides the board an alternative textbook review form.
And I withdraw mine.
Second. Okay. It follows, it's just more comprehensive.
Yep.
So the motion we have by Mr. Powell, second by Ms. Murphy, to retain the current form until a new form is provided to the board for review and approval. All those in favor? 7-0, thank you. Okay, JFCA. Questions, discussion?
More of a question, and let me see if I can find, track changes.
Bless you.
Excuse me.
Thank you.
So on, it's the social studies. So we've got the 3 credit social studies. It looks like what is struck through, so it's removed, is the economics, sociology, or psychology half credit. What's being put in is contemporary world issues, sociology, or psychology. Is there a reason that economics is being removed from this?
So this policy is written based on changes that KSDE, your State Department of Education, has done with graduation, which is trying to get more CTE classes in and at an earlier age. So this does not pertain to anybody until 7th grade.
7th graders.
Okay.
And Laura's right here.
So one of the things that ASB is now requiring, as Dr. Rose said, with the upcoming group of 8th graders will be that they have to have a financial literacy class, which are economics would come in there. The state has not outlined exactly what that financial literacy has to fall under, whether it'll be a math credit, CTE, or technical ed credit. But in that is why the economics was moved separate, because every student is going to have a 0.5 credit of financial literacy.
Okay, but how is economics? Because in my mind, if I think about economics, I'm thinking more about economic systems, forms of government that are based around economic systems.
And that is one of
not
the-
how to balance your checkbook.
Right. Economics, the system of it, and part of the culture piece is embedded into our world history, our world issues, all of that.
So we don't have a
from sixth
specific
grade
class
on.
that's economics.
It's one of the main domains.
Okay.
In our HGSS standards.
So this is more of a semantic change then? Okay.
Can you talk to me about the, it says to earn a diploma from Leavenworth High, a student must earn a minimum of 2 is in black, 3 is crossed out, 6 is in red credits?
I need to get them.
Okay.
In which department?
Graduation requirements?
Graduation requirements.
Okay.
Minimum of 26
So originally, we had 23 credits was what was required by our district to graduate. We now have 26 credits, which that has been.
Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah.
I just know, I
It was
read
a
this at home and I was like,
formatting.
I just wanted it to be stated so everybody was
Right.
clear.
So for full graduation, 26 credits for our district.
Thank you.
Any other questions or discussions on JFCA? Motion.
I have
Like to
no
make a motion.
Objections to any of the changes?
I'd like to make a motion to approve our policies. Wow, where did it go?
JFCA.
JFCA.
Okay.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Ms. Murphy, a second by Mr. Goodman to accept the changes to JFCA. All of those in favor? 7-0, thank you. All right. Item 11, KSB policies update. These are all first reads, correct, Dr. Rose?
Yes, correct.
Okay, so if you have comments on these, this is your first read. Next month will be second read. All right.
When do you want comments on them? Do you want them tonight? Do you want them
As
next?
soon as possible, I would imagine.
Typically, it's the week prior to the next board meeting.
Okay.
Is the
Yeah,
deadline.
when we're looking
Would
at
be the
agenda,
deadline.
that's
I'm saying, is
perfect
the
time.
deadline.
I was just
Do you
just
have notes you want to give?
a little bit replying to Dr. Roth from
Yep.
his earlier comment and some things on, I personally think it's extremely important that our discussions are in public, that people have the opportunity to listen to them 6 months from now on YouTube if that suits their fancy. And so when we don't discuss it in public meeting at first read, we're pushing it down the line and stuff like that. And so
Well,
that's all I was clarifying for.
we haven't had a chance to read it either. So I think the
These-
public can log in and look at all these and ride along with us. And we'll give our notes over the next month to Dr. Roth, and then we'll have a second read. Process.
That's been our standard process from the beginning.
Yes.
All right. Did you want to add anything, Dr. Rose? All right. Item 12, contracted food service request for proposal. Dr. Rose?
So this is the final stage to go out to an RFP, which is a request for proposal. We will work with KSDE to write the parameters of that. We will submit it out to see what companies are actually interested in bidding your food service programs. And then at that point in time, in February, the board would select an interview committee. And at the interview committee, will interview between the February and March board meeting. In March, that committee will make a recommendation to move forward with a certain company or stay status quo. At that point in time in March, you as a board would have the ability, you'll have all the information of what the anticipated growth is, what the anticipated costs are, all of those things. You would have all of that prior to the March board meeting. And you would make a final decision in March, either to go with contracted services or stay status quo. So what this does is give permission to go out for a request for proposal. I did have the opportunity today to meet with food service. We have a few food service ladies here today, where there was lots of great questions, lots of great opportunity for discussion. And I'm glad that they're engaged in the process and that they care about what they have. I will tell you, I reiterated to them that this request for proposal in no way, shape, or form shines anything but positive light on them, because this isn't because of something they couldn't do or can't do. This is an economic decision that I think the board should consider moving forward. Now, whether that pans out is yet to be seen based on proposals, but all indication shows that there is the potential for savings and more options for kids than what we can do economically with the staff that we have. Not that the staff's not capable, because they are super capable, but it comes to an economic thing of buying, and I gave them this example. We may be able to buy a hamburger for $1. They may be able to buy a hamburger patty for $0.25. And so the reimbursable rate, what the meal charge, the reimbursable rate is revenue for the district. And what you do with that revenue, you spread out through the kitchen, you spread out through the other programs, other things that you want to support. So I felt like the meeting this afternoon went well. I think that the mistake that I made, and I told them this today, is that I should have done it earlier. But as I told them, even with that, my recommendation to you as a board would still to see what the possibilities are out there.
I would just add that this board is committed, whether if we do this, that it's in the power of this district. We will do whatever's necessary to protect the employees that we have, because they have served us so well. And that I want to make sure is understood.
And I shared that with them as well too. Very good.
So the only thing that I was asked, and from different schools and different office levels, kitchen staff people have been contacting me for months, ever since our original meeting, was that if they want to, after they see the proposals from these other companies, if they want to have their opportunity to share what they feel like they can do if we don't go with one of these companies, to still maybe make changes or improve what we're currently doing, they have that opportunity. If they still want to do that at some point, would just ask that the board is willing to hear them out.
Why not?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Absolutely.
it's important, especially since we know that our kitchen structure is changing. If we do nothing, there's going to be changes. Knowing and talking to them and finding out what they think is better or what could help or all of that is great. Like, is it possible for our current food service program to present at the same time? What they think, the changes that could be implemented to positively impact our students, like similar to what proposals we would receive from outside companies?
Absolutely.
Plus comparing, because you've got these outside companies that say they can get you the burger for a quarter versus our 50-cent burgers. We could really do a cost benefit analysis between what we're currently using with Cisco and how they're doing their power buy, or if we even wanted to incorporate a power buy. I know we've seen power buy at nationals just as often as we've seen the food service program. That could be another opportunity to save while still maintaining the integrity of what we've had for so many years, which is a rich history of our cafeteria service workers and their relationships with our kids as well. And it's very important.
And as we talked today, those relationships shouldn't change with whoever you select, because the quality of the people are still the quality of people. The other thing that we talked about today that, they're running 25% short on staffing in the kitchen area. As we talked, if you say, and I told them this, so I'm not telling you anything that I didn't talk to them about today, you could, but you would disrupt a lot of things. You could say, okay, for the kitchen, in order to fill that 25%, we're going to pay them $20 an hour. Now you lost your tech people, you've lost your food or your custodians, you've lost everything else.
Mm-hmm.
So from a private standpoint, it's easier for them to incentivize more so than you, because they're only targeting them.
Mm-hmm.
And so as they go out and recruit, they know what they can do for X amount of meals. You could do it, but then who's going to clean your buildings? Who's going to do these other things? Because in a school setting like this, that bargaining is different.
Mm-hmm.
And so we talked about that as well today.
Okay.
And so there's a lot of things that absolutely can change. The economic piece to that, and the being able to go out and recruit differently than what we can recruit, is two big hurdles.
Right.
And if we can overcome them, and you as a board, the longevity of those programs, those are things that you have to weigh in on. As I told them today, things aren't going to be the same next school year, regardless if you go or not, because new leadership's going to be there, and new leadership's going to be in this seat. So expectations, changes, and those types of things are already going to happen. So if we're fearing change because of change, it's already in place.
Right.
I just also want to remind everybody, this is a year-to-year contract. It's not like we're signing this for 5 years. So if what was promised isn't delivered and our people aren't taken care of, chaos is not good for a district, but we still have the authority as a board to go back to where we needed to be.
Right.
And to Ms. Wells' comment, I think it would be great if they could present at the same time, if I understood you correctly. I would just ask that we're, sensitive towards timelines to make sure they have I think it's fair to let them see what these other companies are proposing before they're expected to come up with what, they don't know what's being presented. That's my only comment on that.
So all I would need is if the board
Motion
would
to
like
go
to
forward.
approve moving forward with the process.
Okay.
Madam President, I move that the board approve the district administration moving forward with pursuing the concept of changing or modifying our food service to contract.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion on the table by Mr. Powell, second by Mr. Goodman, to authorize the district to go forward with a request for proposal for contracted food service. All of those in favor? 7-0, thank you. All right, item 13, consideration of Leavenworth High School varsity football jerseys.
Amy, you want to speak to this?
Sure. There should be a break there. This is a year later than should have came to you last year, but Coach Sachin, the head football coach, extended the life of that uniform. We at the high school have a five-year rotation for our varsity uniforms. The varsity uniforms that we currently have will be then transitioned to our sub-varsity JV, and then the JV goes to our C team and so forth. And that has always been the practice in this district. Typically, the cost, as everything else is going up, typically the athletic director has budgeted $9,000 for uniforms. Obviously, it's significantly higher. Just as when we had to help a little bit with the band uniforms previously, Beth and I discussed, and we'll split the cost with them. So there are 80 uniforms away and home, and so this is very normal practice.
Any questions on the uniforms?
Can't we get sponsors with banners?
Start talking.
No.
Do they gonna be wearing anything other than just jerseys or what?
It's the whole uniform, I'm pretty sure.
It's complete.
They get a helmet and shoulder pads too.
Yeah, uniforms. All right, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the purchase of the BSN Sports uniforms for our varsity football team at $19,150. Second.
Okay. The motion by Ms. Murphy, a second by Ms. Reed to accept the bid for the high school football jerseys. All of those in favor? 7-0, thank you. All right, item 14, superintendent report. Dr. Roth.
Today, or this month, is National Appreciation of School Board. So the little cup and the little book is a little swag for you as board members. That's double the pay that you had last year.
It is.
And that today we met as an admin team, and the admin that were present all signed a card in appreciation to the work and support of the administration and the school. Definitely times like today are sometimes trying on a lot of fronts, and you guys do an extremely great job deciphering through everything to make good decisions to keep kids first. So thank you for that. The only other thing that I have is the strategic plan update. As I said earlier, all staff has had an opportunity, that's taken the opportunity to go through the process. We're sending out the parent request this week. And so we'll have all the information gathered and siloed and start submitting out to you in Friday review. So you have a chance to review all of that, and we'll start narrowing it down. We may, depending on time and what happens when you meet with the superintendent search, if we can have everything gathered at that point, may steal 30 minutes to 45 minutes to go through that, to start narrowing that down even further, to get that ball rolling so we could start this next phase of the process. And so anyway, we're still on time, but we have met, or at least tried to meet with every staff group throughout the district as of today. That's all I have.
All right, thank you, Dr. Roth. Item 15, executive session for non-elected personnel.
Do we still want 15 minutes?
Yes,
I just don't know whether we potty break, but okay.
you can put a 5-minute bio break in there.
Okay.
Should've used the first one.
Madam President, I move that we go into executive session to discuss non-elected personnel pursuant to the exception of Kansas Open Meetings Act in order to protect privacy interests of the individuals to be discussed, and we'll return to open session at 09:30.
No,
No.
just 9:35.
Well, I was going to take a potty break. They
Not zero.
badmouthed me. So.
Not 09, that's in the morning. Not
Yeah, we're at
09.
9:35. The board will invite Dr. Roth, Amy Sloan, and board attorney Robert Hingilla
All right.
into the
Second.
meeting.
Second.
All right, we have a motion to go into executive session to return at 9:35. Mr. Powell, second by Ms. Murphy. All those in favor? 7-0.
Madam President, I move that the board accept the recommendations from the staffing report as presented.
Second.
A motion by Mr. Powell, second by Mr. Goodman to accept the staffing report as presented. All those in favor? 7-0, thank you. Item 17, upcoming meeting dates, closing the meeting. So just to remind everyone, the holiday, we have 16th off for the Martin Luther King Day, a half day of school on the 25th for the half-day PD program. 1 February will be a special board meeting to work superintendent search issues. Start at 6 o'clock. The next board meeting will be the 13th of February, and then we'll have a special board meeting on the 22nd of February, primarily an executive session to deal with the superintendent search. Item 17.2, unscheduled patient input. We have several. Mr. Schwartz.
Sorry.
Good evening, board members and fellow citizens. The actions of a local politician in the name of large lobbying information turned this school district, as well as the Lansing School District, into a political playground. Unfortunately, that is zapped funding for actual playgrounds and other needed construction to continue to improve our district. Representative Proctor has made a point to share with his constituents how connected he is with the American Legislative Exchange Council, which uses the organization's status to obscure the identities of donors with clear intention to impact legislation at every level. In 2020, ALEC began enacting their playbook to attack our public school system. Members of this very board have subscribed to this thinking, as it is one representative with admitted close ties to ALEC that began the same playbook here in our communities, turning clearly defined nonpartisan seats in our school board into conservative seats, and has gone as far as to say, as the vice chair of the Leavenworth County Republican Party, we ran 10 candidates for multiple elections. And that's an actual quote. In fact, a newly elected conservative board member, as described by Proctor, did not submit a finance report for the last election and has said she does not have ties to Mr. Proctor. However, they are seen quite together frequently. I'm here to say something shocking, though. I agree with Pat Proctor. Our schools are under attack. It isn't social emotional learning or the CRT boogeyman, though. It's politicians using a political agenda and a playbook written by dark money organizations to advance a political agenda. This does not have anything to do with the students, staff, or educators of this district. Those of you who have subscribed to these political talking points should ask yourself, at what cost does your loyalty require from the district? That is why I do not support this vote. Thank you.
Ms. George.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for hearing me. The rallying cry of taxation without representation from the Revolutionary War seems like antiquated history, and yet even today, elected officials seem prone to the same dissipations in trying to restrict citizens' voices and inputs. Agenda item number 10 seemed to have been in response to a KASB concern rather than an issue that was plaguing this specific district. With this, what this board should be concerned with is the atmosphere that you are establishing with your citizens. The atmosphere should be one of trust, trusting that those who have concerns for the welfare of students can and should be heard. Regarding that IF textbooks, instructional materials, and media centers, challenges of materials, I was objecting to, and I'm glad you are reconsidering and readdressing it with input from your attorney, the deletion of certain aspects of the policy. My specific concern was the deletion of any person to the policy of the materials challenges. Why would you restrict any person who wants to object to objectionable materials, if not to restrict citizen inputs into the education of our citizens? I know of many grandparents, uncles, aunts, loving friends, neighbors, single and yes, even childless citizens who are voters and taxpayers here, who support the school district, who are thoughtful and deeply interested in education. So I urge you to resist a reactionary urge to silence constituents. The proverb, "it takes a village," is something that is upheld by many caring people, and yet this proposed policy suggests silencing a majority of your village. During the discussion, thankfully, Mr. Goodwin and Mr. Hingula indicated there has never been an influx of challenges. I believe Mr. Goodwin said there were 5 and didn't even have a time frame, which indicates that there is no current problem. Instead of addressing a problem, this proposal creates a problem in fomenting an atmosphere of mistrust between boards and citizens. My second objection is the composition of the committee. Why would you ever entertain involving a student in material reviews? Adults that divest themselves of their responsibility to make sound decisions for children is inappropriate and it is shameful. I urge the board not to accept such changes in the future. Changes to the current policy were intimated to prevent any problem that could lurk out there. Tonight's discussion indicated there is no existing problem, but it does indicate that there is a more odious problem, an attempt to keep citizens in the dark and silence voices. It's a big problem. Why would the board object to someone bringing their attention to objectionable materials being presented to the children? Do you think you wouldn't have missed something? If somebody finds something that's objectionable and improves the learning environment for our kids, who cares who that person is? So I urge you to be sound. Thank you very much in your decision-making. Please use sound decision-making.
Ms. Miller?
Hi, my name is Sharon Miller, and I have 2 students in the district. Much has been said tonight about challenging and restricting material. I ask you, what challenges will occur when protected classes of individuals no longer see themselves in what they read and they learn? All students deserve to see themselves in what they read and what they learn every day. I want the students in this district to know, and I want my sons to know, that they are first in this district. And there are people who will continue to fight for their right to see themselves in what they read and what they learn, whether they are straight, LGBTQ, white, people of color, white, rich, poor, religious, or secular. All day, every day, kids first in what they see and what they learn. Thanks on behalf of the work you do for our students every day.
Thank you.
All right, moving on, 17.3, board member comments. Ms. Reed?
Me first. Oh my gosh. Let's see. I want to give a shout out to Harvest Christian Center International for their donation of $800 to go towards negative balances at Anthony Child Nutrition Department. I'm sure that helps those kids with their situations. And so I just wanted to call that out. I'm not trying to overshadow any. We always have lots of amazing contributions. I just wanted to thank them for that. I think it's interesting that people on the left want to pretend like they haven't been involved in school board races. I know for sure in Leavenworth, there was legislator involvement as long as 6 years ago that I'm personally aware of. So anybody that knows me or has talked to me at all knows that I did seek input from both sides and people who are unaffiliated, and was told that it would be vanilla, that it wasn't a partisan situation. Otherwise, I would have never filed for it. Anybody that knows me knows I hate conflict. I love sitting in the back of rooms and people watching. I don't like being involved like this, being on YouTube, being in front of people, ruffling feathers and stuff. But needless to say, I was elected and here I sit. And so for the next 3 years, I'll do everything I can to make sure this is a better district than I found it. Thank you.
Mr. Goodman?
Well, it's been a long night and I've talked a lot. I do want to.
I second that.
Yeah. I do want to just talk about the ROTC program, the ball. It was great. The banquet was wonderful. Seeing all the kids getting up and especially the seniors being able to give their experiences. I really appreciate what they did and enjoyed the evening. So I want to just give a shout out generally to the ROTC program. We have a really great one. Thank you.
I'd like to echo how great the banquet was. You know, we got to meet Lieutenant General Briggs. Of course, we had our state rep and our state senator there in presence, along with our mayor, who contain all the demographics within our community. That makes it rich. And we're really proud of all the kiddos. I know softball is going to be starting soon, along with baseball, basketball. So we got a lot of things going on. We're going to blink and it's going to be graduation time. I mean, we are seriously going to blink and everybody's going to be graduating. So please know you're up here on the roller coaster right now. It's from here on. So please be safe, please be kind, and enjoy the ride.
Haven't said much lately, but I know you all got the same emails I did, and I think you did anyway. And I don't respond to canned emails on what you all do, and that's what they were. And it kind of mirrored what Harry just said. We got involvement that shouldn't be involved. I wish our legislators, all of them, would work on issues that are a little bit more important than getting somebody on a board, like expanding Medicaid, COLAs for our teachers and other capers people, things like that. And what are they doing with all them billions of dollars they got over there in Topeka? If you read the paper, they got a couple $1 billion. They don't know what to do with it. Well, I know a lot of things they could do with it. But, and Jack made a great point. That's why I didn't say anything during the rigmarole about the IFC or whatever. And that's, we've had 5 things and she mentioned it too. So is it really a big deal? I mean, a lot of this stuff is manufactured as far as I'm concerned. And that's my opinion. But I don't want to get into a situation where just because you don't like a book for your kid, that my kid can't read it. That's BS. That's borders on totalitarian. But anyway, if you don't want the kid to read a book, just don't read the book. But seriously, on this, the canned emails coming from, and this came from Proctor because I got his little email he sent out to everybody. We don't need that. And I wish somebody would do something. I thought he got censored by his own party, but I guess that fell through. I don't know. But this guy's no good for our district or for this community as far as I'm concerned. And I hope he's listening.
Ms. Walls?
I am very excited that basketball has started because I get to hear the band indoors and not have to freeze my butt off. I also do really enjoy the environment, watching the student section at the games. If you haven't been to a game, go to a game. Watch the kids in the student section and listen to the pep band. It doesn't matter what the score is, even though the kids play great. They put their hearts out there. But man, that environment is it's why I'm here. The kids and wanting the positivity of each other and just trying to pump each other up and be great humans. And I want every day to be a pep band day. That's it.
Mr. Bell?
The dinner that we went to the other night's the reason why I love to be on this board. And it's exactly what was expressed by a couple here, that you watch the kids and they're just amazing. And there are other programs other than the ROTC program that I'm so proud of. So I want to make sure that we remember to be proud of what we got. I also want to applaud the board on the effort that we put to do the right thing by the policy. I mean, it took a lot of time, but everybody in this board, I'm really proud, cared to make sure that whatever we did with it, it was right, or we thought was right for our kids. So I thank each and every one of you for that. And I hope that this year is a better year than years past. A happy New Year to each of you and to our staff. Thank you for all that you do.
So I'm going to touch back to December a little bit because we talked about people go see the choir and band concerts and such. And I will tell you, they were fabulous. I'm always amazed at what our kids can do, and they're always surprised. And I was really impressed with the Nettie Talent Show. Those are some kids who really put their heart and soul into it. And it was really awesome. So I know not every day is perfect, but when you get to see kids do their thing, it just makes everything better no matter what's going on. Back to the new year. Yes, basketball and wrestling and all the other sports that are coming out there. If you want to do something, have some fun, go support our kids because they get out there and practice and, cheer for them because they need us there. And it is a new year. So it's a new year to be a better version of ourselves. Be a good pioneer. And that's all I've got until next time. 9:51.
God, I might make it home before